Quiet on set!
And action.
Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Ewan Gruff and I'm joined by Kevin Tallmans, and today we are going to talk about an original movie from an original guy. The 9 times Oscar-nominated Marty Supreme gets the spoiler review treatment.
Hey, happy Chinese New Year, because that was like the 17th apparently this year. The mascot is a horse, and the production company who made plushies of the horse like misprinted the smile on the horse, and it was a frown. Many people actually bought that misproduction because they were like, oh, that sort of is representing how I feel as a community. But normally Chinese New Year is about prosperity and being lucky for the rest of the year. So we watched Fat Choi Spirit. And thus continues our Johnny To adventure, the first comedy, should I also say, of Johnny To that Ewan has seen. And we also watched the yearly action movie of Jason Statham. It's not Beekeeper, it's not a working man, it's not even a person this year, it's like Shelter.
Up on an island, taking care of a kid. That's like the premise
of a dog,
like,
really.
Yeah. No, I mean like later in the movie. So it's like it describes about 12 of Jason Statham's movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, this is the biannual, or every third year or so, we are now getting a Bradley Cooper directorial effort to hopefully get nominated at the Oscars. He didn't with this one. Is this thing on? Yes, it is. Just released digitally, and we got some thoughts on this third directorial effort about a finance guy who's trying to find solace in New York's stand-up scene in the midst of his impending divorce.
And Ewan, I'm quite surprised. Like, you're really going out of your comfort zone, like out of your usual territory, watching movies by Bogdanovich, Pakula, Linklater, Linklater not really, but Cian France. You watch films from all of these filmmakers, and like the boldest choice I think you made this week was watching Diane Warren Relentless. Like, that's a bold choice for you. Like, I didn't expect you to make that. I was joking on you on watching that, but I didn't think you actually do it. So like, I'm very proud of you for that.
I mean, I gotta say, like, these obviously, like, they were all like American, like English movies. So I feel like none of these are like actually out of my comfort zone. Watching Diane Warren Relentless put me in a very uncomfortable spot. Like, that was a drag. Anyways, let's get into the show. We got some sad news to start off this week's episode. Rest in peace to Robert Duvall, the actor known for his role as Tom Hagen in the Godfather trilogy. Starred in so many great supporting performances, like Frank Hackett in Network. He often was playing army people, like in Deep Impact, Apocalypse Now, MASH, John Q, The Eagles Has Landed, Gods and Generals, Captain Newman. There's quite a few obscure films on that list, like that I haven't seen or even heard of before I looked like at his filmography now a bit closer. He also got the one and only Oscar for his lead performance in Tender Mercies, and his most recent films were Hustle, Widows, The Pale Blue Eyes. His last really big role, I'd say, was as the judge in The Judge as Judge Joseph Palmer. And I really recommend you explore his vast filmography in the wake of his memory here. I did so myself. I watched The Judge, Tender Mercies, and Secondhand Lions for the first time. Obviously, sad news. He was in his mid-90s. You know, he really got up there in age, but we are coming up at a time where a lot of these like iconic directors and actors of the 60s, 70s, and 80s are like passing away. And yeah, Kevin, how did you feel about the news?
I mean, whenever like an actor of this sort of magnitude that passes away, we're also always thinking about, oh God, like I don't even want to name the other people that are maybe due in the future, and it's just so sad. And Robert Duvall, he very much is an actor that has always looked older than he actually is, even in his youngest year. Yeah. Very much like Gene Hackman. I would very much put him in the same category as him. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen that much of Robert Duvall's more classics. Like I haven't seen George Lucas THX. I haven't seen Network or even Apocalypse Now, which is his most famous role, but I have seen The Godfather, The Conversation. And whenever he is on the screen, he's just electric. And like you said, you named the Judge there. I love The Judge. The Judge, as an Oscar baiting movie, has like a lot of flaws. But like the core of The Judge, with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall like butting heads against each other, is electric and was amazing stuff, and just a great reminder of how good of an actor Robert Duvall is. And I believe it was his last Oscar nomination for that role as well. It was sad to hear, but 95. I mean, I want to be 95 someday too. Like I wouldn't. So while the news is sad, it means that he had a long life. So yeah. How about you? You've watched some of his movies lately. I know you sort of hate watching movies or like talking about them as the actors passes away. Like you've always been a bit on the fence with that.
I feel like it is putting you in an iffy spot of like, we talk about someone as they pass away instead of celebrating them more when they were around. I feel like with someone like Robert Duvall, that wasn't really the case, though. I feel like there was plenty of that, and I think it's just a commercialization of someone's death, right? It's in the immediate wake. Like sometimes I scroll through Instagram and I get so many posts of like pretty young people who have died, and it's just like in memoriam over and over again. A lot of like sports stuff I get, and I don't know why it's feeding that to me, as if I'm like, you know, I want all of this death and like, you know, on my feed. And I was like, no, I really don't. Like, what the fuck is this darkness? And I've like, there is a tendency to it where I'm like, it's a bit iffy for me. But in like doing the thing of like watching a film and then watching it, like some of his films and then talking about them, like that is sort of like, to me, the way I was thinking about it with Robert Duvall this week was like, you know, he might have passed away, he was like 95, but through his movies, it really is like, especially if you haven't seen a lot of them, like you keeping that sort of memory and like person alive, and that's just a special thing about movies. So it's also really interesting to go back, like The Judge, Tender Mercies, and Secondhand Lions, which I watched, which are like, you know, The Judge like about a bit more than 10 years ago, Secondhand Mercies about like 20-ish years ago, and then Tender Mercies, I believe, is from the 80s. It's like
87,
83 actually. So that one's like, you know, quite old by now, like 40 years. I guess I should have watched something from the 90s to like, you know, have a sort of a spectrum of his whole like acting career in there. But yeah, I liked him in The Judge a lot. In Tender Mercies, for his Oscar win, I didn't look up what other people were like in the running, but I thought that was like,
I can look it up if you want.
Yeah, you can, but I feel like he plays a country singer who had issues with alcoholism, is then stepping away from performing and lives sort of like a quiet life with someone he meets on a little remote, like little motel thing in Texas. And I think I was definitely not the target audience here. I really didn't connect with any of those themes in there. Like, it was somewhat about finding yourself, but also having like a bit of faith in there, a bit of like the country southern values. And like, that's something that, you know, obviously Duvall was like a Republican for all of his, I think for most of his life. Maybe he was like later on, like, I think if I look more towards the personal side of him, I probably would connect way less and, you know, with him, and it would be maybe frustrated with some of his opinions. But in movie terms, in the characters he's played, I think he is quite fascinating. And I quite like the sort of presence he has on screen. But did you see what's nominated? What was nominated?
Yeah. So best actor in the leading role in 1984. You got Robert Duvall in Tender Mercies, Michael Caine in Educating Rita, which I have actually seen. Tom Conti in Ruben, and then you got two actors from a movie named The Dresser, which is Tom Courtenay and Albert Finney.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually not familiar with any of those movies. I guess the 80s is a bit of a blind spot for me as well, but also
same.
a lot of it in that era of like the Oscar bait stuff, or like the type of things that get nominated probably isn't the most relevant movies.
If you want to know what the best picture of that year was, the winner was Terms of Endearment. Then you got The Big Show, The Dresser, The Right Stuff, and Tender Mercies.
Terms of Endearment is a really, really great movie.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, I watched all of the Best Picture winners.
I know.
I still haven't made a video out of that. I'm still like sort of working on that, or maybe a series. But you also told me to watch Secondhand Lines. I wouldn't have otherwise, and really wasn't for me. Maybe to get a bit of like a different spectrum of like a bit more of a comedy. But like Haley Joel Osment is also in that one, about like, teenage kid, but still pretty young. I didn't really like him in this role. Like, unfortunately, I think he was quite stiff, and it was like one of those reminders of like, oh yeah, no, I don't like child performances actually. And I think like Michael Caine doing an American accent, like they basically are these rumors around that they are like on have this house countryside again. And they're like have these adventures that they've lived when they were younger, starting basically like, the world travels during World War One, arriving in, I believe, Germany or France, and I think in Germany, and then like outrunning the war and getting into like adventures. And there was like definitely like a very early 2000s aesthetic about it all, where it was like, ooh, yes, the Arabics and like the sort of like very broad strokes of like offensive depictions of things, and just shooting at stuff, and also the obsession with wild animals in movies, I think like has always been there, but I feel like there was also a sort of mini resurgence of that in the early 2000s. And Secondhand Lions, like they get like a lion that isn't a wild one, but like when they get the lion, they are like pointing a gun at him as if like opening the box, and they were planning as he charges or she charges at them to just shoot him. So it was like the premise of like why they have this lion there is so stupid and dumbfounded, like I don't know, left me dumbfounded. So I disagreed with a lot of like the sort of approaches and things about it. But it's a bit of a tearjerker in a way. There's like a speech that Robert Duvall gives to Joel's character at some point that I guess is quite quotable. I think it was also kind of vapid, but yeah, it might
and
be
the judge.
It's a very American movie, and the judge, I think, is like, you say it's Oscar bait, and I do agree. It's like on a deeper level, there's not really much to the judge. It's like father and son reconnecting. The one holds like the very is like local thing, important integrity, and the other guy is like success at all what is the definition of success and like fulfillment in life. And then those things clashing when they were like in the vague terms of growing up and not having that security of like the vulnerability between father and son, and then maybe sort of rekindling that, but in a very manly way where you don't really do it. And like, it's okay. Like, it's sort of, there's not that much on the page, but I think he brings a lot out of it, like sort of the upholding the law, and it's very much like believing in these institutions. And I think over the last couple of years, like for me, a lot of that trust has like been eroded so much that I feel like these almost feel like fairy tales in the way that it's like that you uphold these standards and they're actually truthful and good qualities. But it's a pretty entertaining, like it's an easy watch. I think The Judge is and it's a really great performance from
I like the core of The Judge so much, and then you got like weird ass subplots going on with his daughter, and like
the daughter stuff is
early
really
love weird. And it's so weird, but I just love the core and the acting performances of Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall. And it's like, it's this little period of Robert Downey Jr. doing something else than Iron Man, and it's like, oh man, I wanted something else. And then we got Oppenheimer, which was wonderful, and then it's like, I'm so curious what he's gonna do next, and it's like Avengers. That's like, fuck.
I feel like he always has played cocky quite well, but then having sort of big puffy eyes of vulnerability that like sort of peek through that, And I feel like he's just like been playing a variation of that over and over and over again. And I think at that point with the judge, it felt a bit newish. It wasn't as suave. It wasn't as cool. There was like something to that to be broken down. Like specifically at that point in time as well for his career. Yes, since then, I mean, he's returning to the MCU. Like, what the fuck, man? So yeah.
Well, what's up next?
What's up next? It's the Chinese New Year. You already said it in the intro. It's the year of the fire horse, I believe, right? The year of the horse, the year of the fire. I don't know why there's like a fire horse. Honestly, don't know that much about it. I just know that, like, you know, you get for these festivities in like for the sort of spring-ish. It's not spring yet. It literally snowed here yesterday, but I don't know about China.
Same, like a few days ago.
They got these, I think, 9-day festivities that also, I assume, school is off, and usually in the last 2 years, about a fifth of the Chinese like box office gross came out of like that like 2-week period, which is crazy, right, to think about. It was also Neja 2 last year did like, you know, the bulk of its
business. Yeah,
it's business. And it like so far on February 20th, the last report was that it's around 3 billion yuan that were gross. I think the projections that's like 432 million US dollars, and I think the projections were like that the total gross could go up to like 850 or something like that by the end of sort of this week. And in the like, these are all projections. I really don't hold me to that, but I guess we can give an update on that next week when we hopefully have a bit more details. Like, it's not as you know, we don't get the numbers as clearly. And there's also like always that weird scrutiny about like, oh no, China is actually inflating the numbers. It's like, oh, shut the fuck up, you're being so weird. But Pegasus Free is sort of leading the pack, having made about like half of that total gross so far.
I've never heard of it.
I've heard of that movie's series. I forget if I actually watched one of them. I don't think I have. They didn't.
Blaze of the Guardian I've heard of. Yeah, like this movies you have in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm about to go through them, but there's a few more in here. There's also the Jackie Chan live action movie Panda Plan, The Magical Tribe, Scare Out, Bonnie Bear's The Hidden Protector. That's a animated kids movie. Blades of the Guardian. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think as far as like Scare Out is the other like big release that did I believe like 500 million yuan. Which I can't convert that to US dollars, but it's doing well. You'll see it in the box office reports soon of like these movies that, you know, it's always funny to go onto Letterboxd as well, because like there's barely any logs for them because Chinese people don't use Letterboxd, which is a surprise to me. Like, it's, I guess maybe it is limited that they can't. Is it one of those things?
No, they probably can, bro.
Yeah.
They probably can't. Everything is fucking censored there. Like, they have their own stuff.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, maybe censored in a way, but also everything is nationalized in a way that like they have their own thing as well, right? But yeah, I mean, it's another big week at the Chinese box office. Zootopia 2 has been doing crazy numbers there, and I guess it's the own wave of like what I sort of saw and people talking about it, that like the themes of these movies are less nationalistic, like propaganda-ish than they were in the last couple of years, and they're moving more towards the sort of entertainment vein of like VFX heavy Hollywood like
for sure
movies.
It's like always something entertaining, and I guess it's also sort of a reflection of like, oh, it's Chinese New Year, we need people to happy. Like New Year comedies like are like sort of a staple over there, as we're gonna talk about with another movie a bit later in the podcast. But yeah, they're supposed to entertain. They're always like these big blockbuster movies. I mean, just look at that Pegasus Street poster, man. You know what I mean? I can't, man. That poster looks so awful. It's like,
it is those things like they are giving a bit of like, you know, graphic design is my passion, and they just like,
exactly.
Well, like so much of it is just like blank sky, and then it's just a ton of people done. It's like somewhat equivalent to F1, where it's like a racing movie. I don't
Well,
even know.
just
what it's
read the
about.
first popular review, man. Just read the first popular
Makes
review.
F1 the movie look like Citizen Kane. Yeah, I mean, it's often like that. Just like so many people go out to theaters, and it's just an event that like I think people get like vouchers, and it's cheaper to go out as well. So it's like encouraged that you make a whole like day out of going to see a movie, going for food, and I think it's such a neat celebration that like it's interesting that it's so tied to movies as well, because you don't have that in, I believe, any other country that I would know of, that is like obviously not to this scale as in China, but like where the festivities like include movies so often.
I mean, America, what you got, like Martin Luther King weekend, you got 4th of July, like I know that type of thing, but like in Europe, I don't think there's anything. Like Boxing Day maybe in the UK, but that's not really tied to movies, is it?
Exactly. It's like these holidays that are you often see like a animated family movie, like often then releasing to that day, like sometimes like because movies come out on Friday in the States, like they release on Wednesday sometimes, right? There's nothing comparable to it, and it's quite fascinating. It's often movies that obviously don't really have an appeal outside of China as well, like, you know, some movies that you wouldn't otherwise see.
I mean, I am interested in Blades of Guardian. I mean, it's like an action movie, you know.
Yeah, there are the exceptions, of course, but yeah, that's the news this week. Do you want to talk about a recent Oscar nominee, an Oscar favorite, a dark horse for Best Picture?
The main horse for the Best Actor race,
exactly.
As well.
Let's talk about Marty Supreme. Marty Mauser, a young man with a dream no one respects, goes to hell and back in pursuit of greatness. That's the latest film from the Uncut Gems and Good Time director Josh Safdie, his first solo project, actually, without his brother Benny Safdie, who's been doing more acting, you know, as of recent. There's also Timothée Chalamet in the lead role, the Oscar.
Hey, I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, you might have seen him in the one or other film. There's the somewhat return of Gwyneth Paltrow to acting. I think she hasn't really been or doing anything other than Goop candles in the last couple of years. There's also the newcomer Odessa Ozion, which was at one point favored or like actually in the running for a supporting actress nomination, which she didn't end up getting. There's also Kevin O'Leary. Fuck Kevin O'Leary. But he's in this movie. Tyler, the Creator, Frank Drescher, Abel Ferreira. And, you know, looking at the cast, it's apparent that this movie, it does deserve its casting nomination. And it's the new category for the Oscars. We're not just going to talk about like, ooh, Oscar this, Oscar that. Let's talk about the movie.
I hate it.
And get into it. It's recently arrived on VOD, on premium VOD, so you can go see it there. In a lot of places internationally, it actually took this long for it to release into theaters. A movie that you should definitely see on the big screen if you can, but if you missed it and you're not in a country that actually gets access to it, you can also watch it from the uncomfort of your own home, as many of these Safdie movies are very much, pushing your adrenaline and frustration with the lead character. But Kevin, what did you think about Marty Supreme?
Once again, I am gonna rant a bit about the spillover, the international spillover shit, because it's like Marty Supreme. First of all, let's just, like everybody is saying it, Marty Supreme has had the generational run of marketing, promo, whatever.
It's so
it was
annoying the amount of times you sent me
insane.
messages that were just like Schwepp. It was it's like, oh my god, I'm going to crash out, Kevin. You are bringing me to the brink of sanity, man.
Yeah, I just love that gift because it means something and it means nothing at the same time. That's why I just love to send it so much. Joe, you got the marketing, you got the hype behind it, because Marty Supreme originally wasn't going to debut anywhere, and then I believe it was like the surprise film at the New York Film Festival, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. And from that point on, the hype train was rolling, and that was like back in November, maybe end of October.
Actually. Beginning of October. Actually, it says the
even beginning of October.
Yeah, it says the 6th of October.
So, bro, it's like, so you got like no, October, November, December, like it's like 4 or 5 months of just hype.
Yeah.
And then it arrives here. And I wanted
Christmas
to go
Day.
see Marty
Marty Supreme Christmas Day.
Marty Supreme Christmas Day. So like it's basically like a little bit more than 2 months for the rollover, but that's like 2 months of waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Timothée Chalamet movie. Timothée Chalamet has very much acquired the status of that's an actor you have to go see on the big screen, which not many actors have these days, and that's the profile that he very much is working on. And I think everyone can admire that he's going for that type of status. Very famously, his SAG speech for A Complete Unknown also being like, I want to be one of the greatest. I want to be the Michael Jordan, the Daniel Day-Lewis, the Viola Davis of this industry. It finally arrives here at 2 months, and you go in with so much anticipation, with so much hype, and it's like, can it even meet it? And it's like, it maybe fell for me just a bit short of those expectations. And again, maybe if it was a shorter release and you're watching the movie along with everybody worldwide, then you'd be a bit more hyped or like a bit more in the conversation and dissecting the movie. And now with a few months later, it's like, oh yeah, I thought it was pretty good. That's essentially sort of my reaction to this movie. I thought it was good. To be fair, I haven't seen Uncut Gems. I know. I haven't seen Uncut Gems. I'm sorry. I have seen Good Times. Good Time though, but I haven't seen Uncut Gems. So, fuck! I made him angry. Oh god.
I'm not angry at you know what. I'm just flabbergasted.
I thought you were gonna say disappointed.
No, I'm dude. We got other stuff going on. You got other movies,
the reason why I didn't watch Uncut Gems, 2019, banger year for film, right?
Oh,
and every year there are like just a few of these movies that my expectation level is just way too high, and I end up never catching them. The most famous recent one is like Tar. I've never seen Tar just because my expectation for that movie are way too high. So I just never got around to seeing it.
Yeah.
But again, I have seen so much of Uncut Gems because the amount of memes that movie has created, my lord, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think, looking at the Safdies, and I'm going to still have them as a collective feel, because I feel like as a driving force, I still feel a lot of that same identity in Good Time and Uncut Gems. Obviously, they've also done Daddy Long Legs. They've done like other things, but those are the most prominent ones that really, each one increased their sort of stardom and fame as directors, and also really implemented them in the sort of industry. And I think this one is the weakest yet, and I'm saying that in a way of like giving this, rating wise, it's been out there for months for me, but like an 8 out of 10. But I do think Uncut Gems was one of like the top 4 movies of that year, with Parasite, A Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Marriage Story, and Uncut Gems. Those were like my top 4 that year, and really, really blown away by that film. Good Time, also like a 9 out of 10, great film. And then here I did feel, even though there wasn't, like I saw this right after it came out in the States. I was lucky enough to see it like last year still. In a smaller theater though, like in a private screening. Something about it felt a bit more constructed than these other movies do. Like it felt more of the chaos was carefully put together and then sort of shuffled again. And that over and over again felt like I wasn't really in it so much for the lead character, for Marty, and like where I didn't really know what was going next. And obviously, like, it does feel that, and I've also rewatched the film now, and I think it's like the way that I watched it was definitely different, where in parts I couldn't help but root for him a bit more in scenes where he was so much of a prick. And then in the second time around, I was like so fed up with him at parts, but then I couldn't help but get drawn in when he makes a spectacle out of like playing table tennis. That's sort of the feeling the movie's going for, and I think it's really successful in really making this guy a complex person to root for. And I think a lot of the responses were also like, ooh, I'm not watching this because Marty's actually a shit guy. I was like, yeah, are you only watching like I don't know,
yeah, good guys,
and you can't like endure the moral complexity of someone on the big screen, and it really speaks to like the media literacy and also the cinema media literacy that I feel like a lot of people are lacking when a lot of what they consume is series and slop that like make you overly indulgent to characters that you might not even, that you lose track of someone's maybe morality and goodness when all that is put out to you is always like, you know, pursuit of greatness, but at what cost? And like everything he does is sort of that, but also like sort of the selfishness, the self-importance, and that is really off-putting. But it's at the same time, from an outsider's view, we are cherishing these like, you know, achievements of greatness as well. So like it sort of has a lot in there to chew on, a lot of things to take away with, a lot of things to focus on, and I think that's always like really rich in this in a movie like this that accomplishes it. And I think Tar is kind of a great comparison to this as well, like kind of randomly as well, right? Where you have someone who has this sort of greatness to them, but there's something dark and bad about them as well that's sort of lingering. So I think like Marty Supreme is an like expertly made movie. It's incredibly well cast. It's so well shot. Like the 2:3:9:1 aspect ratio is like incredibly cinematic. It was shot on like RCam LT Panavision lenses on like 35 millimeters mostly. There's like some digital shots and some 60 millimeter, but like the look of it, the production design, all of the nominations it's got, I think it very much deserves. It was just, compared to like I think for some other people, it was really up there for like one of the best movies of last year, and it wasn't really in the conversation for me, but I think it's a really, really solid film.
I think the same, and it is quite funny to have seen now two Safdie movies, because I feel like the comparison is inevitable. The same with the Coen brothers. Whenever they go on their little separate ways, they get compared as well. I will say the Safdie brothers movies, I mean them two, The Smashing Machine and Marty Supreme, have more in common than the Coen brothers do whenever they go their separate ways. I mean, you got the weird, I don't know, like comedies that Ethan is making, and then you got Joel that is very much making. The Tragedy of Macbeth is like so much different than, you know, Honey Don't. And there are quite a lot of comparisons. You got the text on the screen, you got the sort of look, I will say, is similar with that grainy texture with shooting on film. The energy, I feel like the energy of these two movies are way different. I think that's the biggest difference between those two movies. The energy,
it's
the
also
vibe.
What is interesting, it's two movies about real life athletes, and one is taking, like, one of my criticisms for The Smashing Machine was it's basically just like a feature film remake of the documentary, adding like tiny little things but not obscuring the truth a lot. And Marty Supreme really takes the premise of sort of this guy who was really showboaty in the way that he was playing table tennis, and then like constructing a story around it. Like there's no real life Rachel Meisler, like the Odessa Zion character is a total construction. Like the Kevin O'Leary stuff, like I believe the Koto Kawaguchi's like Koto Endo is actually based on a real player, and also Koto Kawaguchi is also a real life player. He's a deaf table tennis player. So like the
one
casting,
bronze medal. Low.
And I think a lot of it is cast through like the way he goes about like casting and saying like someone fits. It's like someone needs to fit in the 50s aesthetic as well. Like someone can look out of place, and that's the reason why you wouldn't cast him as well. So his like acting process was like casting process was incredibly precise, and like everyone has sort of a reason to be there, and I feel like you feel that depth in the world as well, in a lot of like the background too, right, where it sort of extends the frame, but it's not, you know, accurate to Marty Mauser, you know, is a construction. The real guy is not called Marty Mauser, he's called what's his name,
Marty Reitman.
Yeah, Marty Reisman, yeah. And there's like a video that went in a little viral of that actual an actual match that he was playing, where like you could see the sort of emphasis on the big
Their playing styles.
exactly the playing style. Like what is true is that like he actually upgraded himself into like a better accommodation. Like that's something that he actually did. The upcharging of like what he like the extent of it also emphasized. A lot of it is like overemphasized just to hammer home a point. Like he didn't crash through. Like we should say spoiler review for the movie. He didn't crash through like a bathtub thing of like someone.
Yeah, my mouth was agape during that scene. I told you, it's like, huh? Wait, what? And it lands on a man washing his dog.
Yeah,
like, oh god, what's going on?
Like on a rewatch, I actually looked away during that scene because I couldn't endure it. It was like, no, I don't want to see it.
I think for that scene alone, Abel Ferrero was like, I'm in. I think that was the scene. It was like, I want to be part of this.
And it's interesting casting someone who's obviously also a director. Not a lot of people have gotten familiar with him, and then sort of seeing him in this role, and it just sort of fits in. Like everything sort of fits in neatly into place, and I think a lot of like the actual moments in between are obviously always a distraction from his goal, which is just to win and be this great person of the sport and get fame and money, something that he feels like he's owed, because that's sort of the journey he's on, and everything is just an obstacle in his way, and not really seeing that maybe he's putting obstacles the way he's behaving in his own path. But then it's also like sort of, well, he has to sort of go over people to actually get where he wants to, because like there are things going against him. Yeah, but what do you think about like the conflicting journey he's on? Do you think there was one, like, was it engaging? Were you rooting for him, or like what sort of feeling did you have towards the lead character?
Because for me, I saw some people mention Rocky as an inspiration, because the marketing mostly was like ping pong. This is a ping pong movie. It's a sports movie. It's like, okay, but it's not really. For me, it's very much clear that Chalamet is going like to Hustler and The Color of Money, but like on steroids. I think that's the best way to describe Marty Supreme. Like, you're sort of rooting for the guy, but you're also not rooting for the guy. And it's also a bit like it's very much a charged period. With the whole America versus Japan thing in like the 50s. That kind of setting is also very interesting, and a bit, I guess I will give you Rocky 4 for that. It's like America versus Russia, the same thing. Yeah, was I rooting for the guy? Sure, but you also are like, man, this guy, I don't know what his end goal was. And I think that's also a bit my
he's sort
complaint with this movie.
He's chasing after a car, and he's a wild dog, and he's just like, oh my god, I'm gonna get there, but he doesn't know what he'll do once he gets there, right? He sort of has that energy a bit.
At the end, it's like, okay, you try, like, what is the meaning of this movie? Like, the ending is like, okay, so you gave it a shot, and now you're going, you're gonna be a shoe salesman. I guess you're gonna have a kid. You're not gonna continue the table tennis anymore, so it is like, chase your dreams, try it, but if not, it's okay to be a regular guy. I'm not really sure what the message of the movie is.
I think the thing is, he's not really, and I like this about movies, where like the ultimate thing is not one larger message. And I think you're not saying that at all, right? But it's like interesting to say like what the final shot, because it's such a different sort of path that we see open up for him, and maybe that's also something that we are like sort of rooting for. That's like, take accountability for your fucking, like, literally the opening, and we didn't talk about it, for his fucking semen, right? And then it turns it to the ball. Such a brilliant,
crazy opening title sequence.
Yeah,
I wrote in the show notes, and I that was legit the first thing that I noted in my head. It's like, we are opening the movie like this.
Yeah, and I think it opens to Forever Young, right? That song. Like, we haven't said it yet, but like maybe we can run through it briefly, because like, I'm not saying it so we can talk about the Oscars, but the Oscar nominations for this are like production design, costume design, editing, cinematography, casting, original screenplay, actor, director, and picture. And I think the biggest snub here is score.
100%.
And the soundtrack as well is like great, right? That's something different. But there's like the one doom doom, like that sort of score beat that comes in, I think twice in the movie, at least twice, where it really stood out to me. And it was like I felt like I was a sleeper agent that was activated, like doom, doom. I was like leaning forward. It's like, okay, lock the fuck in. Now a scene like is actually, and it's I think both of the scenes where that specific score theme comes in is when he's playing table tennis, and I think those scenes were actually like exhilarating as well. Obviously, if you are like, you know, an enthusiast about it, it's like, oh, digital ball, blah 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 blah. But I think it's not as outrageous as something like Challengers is, right? It's like probably not. Maybe it is. I don't know. But like it's still like I was in it for that as well, for the sports scenes too. I think they were like very well done, and the way it like shoots the whole tournament and this first thing, and like you see everyone playing, and like so the slow push in, like some really great directing choices of like a wide frame and using that to the full extent of like your full like, you know, extras cast as well. And I was quite blown away. But I want to hear from you, like what were some of your highlights from the soundtrack and the score?
I would compare it with The Brutalist, you know, like how The Brutalist has also that sort of note that you were talking about. The same with this. I gotta hand it to, because they were talking about Oscar snubs, and when I saw the Big Picture and The Ringer talking about it, and they were like, oh, the Oscar voting group is a very much classical fan group, because electronic scores have been snubbed in the past.
Challenges, yeah.
Famously, like Challenges.
True, yeah.
And that's what, like, are they against that? Is there a bias against this type of score? Maybe. Maybe that will change in the future. But I do think this really should have gotten in. But if we are talking about, you know, Oscar nomination and potential wins, what do you think about Timothée Chalamet winning for this movie?
I'm honestly, I got no horse in this race. Like I don't really care, if I'm being honest, if Timothée Chalamet wins or DiCaprio. It obviously would be Timmy's first win and DiCaprio's second. Both great actors. It feels like, you know, new generation on a similar trajectory and caliber of DiCaprio, but also in ways Timothée feels a bit more daring in the roles he's taken on so far. He's also shown a willingness to do a bit more franchise movies other than like making the movie sort of big through just the presence of DiCaprio. That's sort of what he's built up to. But when it comes to like pitting these individual performances next to each other, maybe I'd give it like, if I had to choose between those two, I would go with Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon. But I think DiCaprio probably would edge it out for me if I had to make a pick, but I think both of them are really good.
Well, because I was thinking, is this Timothée Chalamet's best role? And I don't think Marty Supreme is his best role.
No.
If I have to pick something, it's gonna be Beautiful Boy. I think his performance in Beautiful Boy is actually the most raw and honest one, and the one that I don't think, oh, I'm looking at Timothée Chalamet, which with Dune, which Little Women, like he has garnered a certain type of, I want to say like boyish quality, but like there he really has become Timothée Chalamet for me, and in his earlier work, he wasn't that type of actor yet. So I wouldn't really say Marty Supreme is his best role. Like I would even give that to Dune. Think I even prefer A Complete Unknown above this, even though the movie Marty Supreme I do like over A Complete Unknown. Like, what about yours? What is your favorite?
I think it's probably like, he was also nominated for this, right? For Call Me by Your Name. I really love him in Call Me by Your Name. But it's also the strength of a great movie. It's like the collection of everything, and I think this is as well. But maybe it's a bit more like just outward sadness and longing, and that's something that I think is, if you get it right and you see it through someone's eyes, it can be very moving. I think Beautiful Boy is also really good, and I think in Dune, not something that would get rewarded, but the sort of from 1 to 2, the sort of step up he has, like the projected out voice that he does in that one monologue scene, the speech scene is so, like, it feels like, oh, this is not Timmy anymore. This is Timothée. He's a grown up now. And like obviously he's done that in other roles, but like that boyish quality, right, is something that feels like, oh, we're moving past this now. This is a new era of the Chalamet.
And I do think Marty Supreme is also like another end of an era, because he has talked about being a father, wanting kids to have a solid relationship. I feel like this movie also sort of encapsulates his career so far. It has very much been a train ride, a wild ride that is. And at the end, where he's sort of settling down, I think that is also a reflection of Timothée Chalamet from what he has said in interviews, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, always when he was on that high projecting of that SAG speech, writing it into the promotion of this film, and then getting the first couple of accolades, and then toning down his sort of hype level for himself. Be a bit more demure.
Humble. Yeah,
exactly. And I think I don't know, it's hard to gauge. It's just going to be interesting the next projects he takes, but I think he obviously,
I mean, he's doing Messiah.
Yeah, I mean, like the next project he takes after, like that he chooses after, maybe also an Oscar win, right? Does he slow down? Yes, he does have a great,
I mean, he hasn't been in many movies, that you have to remember. He hasn't been in that many movies. I mean, let's go back. Marty Supreme, A Complete Unknown, Dune, Wonka, Bones and All, and then you got Don't Look Up, Dune, French Dispatch, Little Women, King. Like, that's just the last 8 years?
Yeah.
Like 7 years?
Well, anyways, I think we can wrap it with, I feel like, Timothée is interesting, and Marty as the lead character, but I think I would love to talk about like some of the like parts of the movie a bit more. And maybe, having this take place and this story in 2026, and this sort of the type of character that he is this something, an archetype that you can project onto maybe a modern feeling of this sort of person that is driven for his greatness, willing to step on others, not really seeing a larger picture in the moment to moment, but is oddly charming in maybe his own circles. Like for me, it felt in a way it's sort of the social media equivalent to like a crypto bro, a finance bro, someone who's like fitness looks maxing. Like there was some essence to it that I felt was quite familiar with like a modern person too, of losing yourself in your own self and being so self-involved that like a quality that I noticed a bit more on the second watch, where I was like, okay, I can see a lot of like people who are somewhat like have similar traits to Marty that are getting on my nerves. Like very prominent online too.
And I think that's the biggest compliment you can give this movie, the fact that it feels so modern, despite taking place in the 50s. Despite having very much people that look like they're in the 50s, I think the casting for this movie was excellent.
Yeah.
Acting like the slimy, but we also reflect upon people that we know in this movie. I think it's very fun. What was the wildest moment in this movie for you? Because for me, it was the bathtub, but I also can very clearly say people when they went to that farmer's house, and it's like you knew it was coming.
That was one of the moments that was too much to me, like that whole side plot of the guy and like the dog and then shooting if you get on his property. It obviously like leaves a lot of like way to just have these whole other worlds of people that are just like in the background that are just a means to an end for Marty of like what he can sort of exploit, but like not in a way where he's in control of it all. I think there's like a quote in the movie where it goes like, "I'm losing control of my life, but it's going to be fine" or something like that.
Yeah.
Some of the quotes are pretty wild as well, but like that scene, I think I love the back and forth when they are going back to Dion's place with his parents, right? And they come in, they wanna stay overnight, and he goes like, no, you guys gotta leave. And then she goes from like pretending to cry of him wiping away her tear, and then
But
seeing
tears
that
and
it's
makeup.
makeup, and then immediately flipping on her, and then them screaming match, being kicked out, and then going like, I have a purpose. If you think it's some kind of blessing, it's not. It means I have an obligation to see a very specific thing through. I was like, okay, mister. Like, he has a similar moment with Gwyneth Paltrow when I think he's like maybe sort of playing it up as well to like push her away. He basically says like, oh yeah, he's an own self-made man. He never wants anyone else to like give him stuff, to like, he wants to succeed his own way. And I was like, the whole time in this movie, that's a pure contradiction of what's been happening, and his like ignorance to like ignore that, right, is something that is frustrating about the guy. But I think it's something that we obviously in the movie we are like paying attention to, but maybe in our own lives, when we do have the privilege, it's often like something that we can very easily overlook. And I feel like that for me is like the chaos that I like. But I think the bathtub is probably like the highest bit of that's the other thing where I think the scene also doesn't really fully, like, there's slight little things that don't work for me, but when they're chased out of the gas station and then like the whole thing blows up. But I think, like, honestly, the wildest thing was just like the fucking opening with the, like, I burst out laughing, and it was with a journalist mate of mine, radio host, and we were like sitting in the row, and we were looking at each other, seeing the sperm thing like transition into, and we were just like bawling. It's like, that's crazy. What a choice.
You actually mentioned the Gwyneth Paltrow. I think, I don't know, man. That whole plot, I wasn't like, sorry, you're not gonna have sex in a public park. I'm sorry, nah, you're not gonna do that. Like, why take the risk there? It's just like, I think you said it in the show notes. Like, sometimes the chaos feels too constructed in parts.
Yeah.
And for me, that is a part where it feels a bit too constructed. Oh, they're gonna make out in a public park, and then, oh, hey, he's gonna take her chain. Then they have to get a new chain because she doesn't want Kevin O'Leary's chains. And it's like, come on, man. Like, this part, for me, wasn't necessary. You can just use Gwyneth Paltrow's character as a means to get to Kevin O'Leary's character for Marty Mauser, because that's what he essentially is chasing. And for me, it didn't need to be done that way, but I just don't think Josh Safdie can, do a smooth sailing like that. It has to be a rocky road for the characters in their movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, if getting spanked by Kevin O'Leary at a table tennis battle wins you an Oscar, good for Timmy.
Yeah, and I think it's like, not to get political. I'm not getting political, but Kevin O'Leary's presence in this movie is like, it's perfectly cast. He delivers. Yeah. He has that weird ass quote about the vampire thing, which is like, it's an interesting one. I think there was like an over discussion about that when the movie came out as well. That was a bit of like, I don't know, it was a bit boring to me at one point. Him saying the comments after this film that he wants to be like a Bond villain, and the sort of influence that just money drives maybe in this industry that isn't like, obviously here it's a sort of A24 potentially domestic grosser. I think it's just short of like 100 million, which is still by far the highest grossing A24 film. And so it's going to make like money overseas. Like, this is a very successful movie. But I think looking at more franchises and these castings that were like very specific to this movie, and then some of the takeaways that some of these, I'm just talking about Kevin O'Leary, I guess, here, and the sort of him wanting to be plucked more into other films. It's like, oh, you are such a virus. Get away from me. Like the way that he's just a despicable salesman in real life and in this movie, it works well for the film. But it is very off-putting when you have to put it into the context of like real life. And unfortunately, he's kind of
he's Mr. Wonderful.
Oh my god! Have you ever watched Shark Tank?
I have.
Like the way that he always gives these like shitty ass deals of like percentages of back pay. Like his deals are always so fucking useless. Deal
until I get my money back.
Exactly, and he always talks about like his social media presence, and then he tweets and like he has like 5 likes. I was like, brother, you don't have a social. Maybe he has one more now, but he didn't have it when he was like this like sort of mogul on fucking Shark Tank. He's
also don't forget. how he commented on like, oh, all these extras, it would be way cheaper if you did it with digital doubles and AI and all that.
Yeah.
He also commented on that in interviews, which is very much in line with his character.
Him and Timmy are doing like very organic, the way that they're so much like their characters. Just one
By
of
the
them
way,
sucks more.
when earlier you said like, oh yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow's focus with Goop, I was just, my first thing, my thing went to the burnt peanut. Because you're like, goop, 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 we need the goop.
Well, I don't watch.
You don't know that,
Yeah,
fuck's sake. Oh,
I don't know that,
man.
I feel
you're
like
such a
you're
boomer.
losing
It's
people.
Crazy.
I feel like, the sort of VTuber, whatever, I think that can pass me by, and I think I'll be fine. Any other quotes? Anything else that you wanted to talk about when it comes to Marty Supreme?
Not really. I think it's a bit weird about that vampire thing that you mentioned, because they apparently shot also something to like broaden onto that little side tag, but
right.
I don't really have much more to say about it than we already have. I give it an 8 out of 10. It's a very solid movie. Perhaps I would have liked it, if it was a bit closer to the original release dates worldwide. But yeah, solid one.
Something I forgot to talk about was the Kletsky character. I think I really liked him. Like that one scene where they are having fun with it, working together in the vaudeville thing, which I think is also partly true that the actual Marty did that. But like the early quote that he has, like I'm going to do what Kletsky, I'm going to do to Kletsky what Auschwitz couldn't, is so fucking out of pocket. It's like, yeah, I can say it. I'm Jewish. I was like, okay, buddy. And then like the story about the bee and rubbing and the licking and like that, telling that to Kevin
was also.
It was like it's sort of interesting choices about like, tells you a lot about the focus of these characters and how quickly sort of in the immediacy of your own greatness, you don't really have a lot of like sympathy for any other people's struggle. I really like the dynamic that like Kevin O'Leary's off-putting thing about like saying like, yeah, my son died liberating you. I was like staring at him. I was like, oh. Okay, my fault, I guess, that I was in Auschwitz. I was like, it was like oddly charged. Like that whole scene, I think it worked really well for me for how odd it is and how it sticks out in the larger narrative. I think it actually worked really well.
And it also returns oftentimes like, oh yeah, I was a friend of his son, so he can go visit him. Yeah,
it's sort of the exploitation that Kevin O'Leary does of like garnering sympathy of like, my son died for something, so I'm like mad and sad about it, to Marty using it to like get him into a place. And then the one time where like he offends him at the lunch as well, where like he's like I forget what he says specifically, but like yeah, the scene ends with him like, no, you owe me food, you owe me lunch. Just a despicable little rat he is in this movie, but I also gave it an 8 out of 10.
Can I ask you one question? What's your best picture ranking? Because I have now, with now having seen Marty Supreme, I have seen them all. I'm not gonna lie. When I look at my best picture ranking, it's like I have so many 4 out of 5s. I do think the overall quality of this year's best picture nominees compared to last year is better. I just do think there are better movies in last year's best picture nominees than in this year's. My favorite of this year is still Train Dreams. Then it's followed by One Battle After Another. Then with Frankenstein. And honestly, from 4 to 8, it could be anyone's game. I kind of want to put The Secret Agent up there. Like, that movie has grown on me a bit. I do think Sinners is a little bit of a banger. I am a bit lower on, sentimental value and Hamlet. Probably with the same vibe that I had with... my expectations were so high when watching that movie. But how about you? Where did Marty Supreme land in those 10?
I think Marty Supreme would be at spot number maybe 7. Unfortunately, it is kind of sort of 6, 7. Somewhere there. I think the number one spot would go to Sentimental. I think the meme is hopefully now coming to an end and finally dying soon.
And it is already dead.
I'm trying to contribute to it. I don't think so. It still is like sort of lingering.
Nah, it's dead, bro. It's dead.
I'm tapped in, buddy. I'm tapped in. Listen to my best picture top 10. Number one spot to me is, yes, Sentimental Value. Then we got Frankenstein. I think I would actually have The Secret Agent above of Hamnet at this point. Then I got Train Dreams, One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Sinners. I haven't rewatched both Sinners and One Battle After Another. I will do that before we have another look at like last year's movie, like a final thing. So it might overtake Marty there as well. And then I have F1 and Begonia to like close out the list.
So you have F1 above Begonia?
I do have F1 above Begonia, yeah. Rating wise, it's just like I gave it a 6 out of 10 to Begonia and a 7 out of 10 to F1, although I feel like,
oh my god, twinning.
There's no substance, there's like an over reliance on score in those racing scenes, but it's still like a very technically well made film. I enjoyed it quite a bit, so I wouldn't put it into my best picture lineup. Obviously, I'd have like so many other films above it, but from the lineup we got, F1 is F1 number 9.
And one final thing I got to add, just quickly went to look at Timothée Chalamet's project that is going on, and he does have a project with James Mangold reuniting on a complete unknown, a movie called High Side. And the synopsis there is Billy, a former MotoGP racer, is pulled back into a life of danger when his strange brother Cole, pursued by the FBI, recruits him for a string of high-speed bank robberies using superbikes. Haunted by a past crash and caring for their addict father, Billy is reluctantly drawn into the heist. As the crew targets small-town banks and tension builds, an FBI agent with ties to Cole closes in, leading to a high-stakes final job during a major motorcycle parade packed with action and emotional relations. It seemingly is sort of leaning into the action side of things, which is a sort of Tom Cruise route to go, because again, Tom Cruise also had these little dramatic roles in the beginning of his career and then moving into something action. Dune sure has action, but I think Dune is more than action. I feel like, is this the right direction for Timothée Chalamet to go?
He's making his own path. It's really hard to say like what's right or wrong for him. But I think that's sort of the quality that you can have when you have that sort of level of success that he's been having, that you can make those maybe, choices where people like, I think the only advice that he got from, or the advice that he got from DiCaprio was like, no drugs.
Don't do sequels.
No sequels, no drugs, no superhero movies, right? Something like that. And sequels, obviously, in the vein of like Dune, makes sense when there's an auteur behind it, like a reason when you have the same sort of mentality from a director who wouldn't do sequels but then does one. I think there's a sort of exception to that. But yeah, can't wait for The Departed 2, where it's just like him closing the door. It's Brad, and I'm just already at the next movie. But like DiCaprio, the closing door of the elevator. Anyways, you want to wrap it up for Marty Supreme?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Let's talk about Is This Thing On? As the marriage quietly unravels. Yeah, you gotta. Oh my god.
Is it?
No, it's not. You did the bit already. I'm redoing that actually. I'm not letting you do that bit again, because you did it last week. Then I did it in the intro. I think if we do it 3 times, people are going to unsubscribe in droves. We'll be in the minuses when it comes to
don't.
Actually, what you should try is this thing on when you click on the this actually could backfire if you're already a subscriber. But if you're not a subscriber, I think if it says subscribe, check if it's on and click on it. Is this thing on? As their marriage quietly unravels, Alex faces middle age and an impending divorce. Seeking new purpose in the New York comedy scene, while Tess confronts the sacrifices she made for their family, forcing them to navigate co-parenting, identity, and whether love can take a new form. That's the third directorial effort from Bradley Cooper, who is very set on, I guess, getting his Oscar win. Some saying like he's very desperate to get it. I don't really, I'm paying it close attention to that. I think it's also something like an easy dunk on him, like, oh, look at this guy trying so hard to go for an Oscar. But I think with both Maestro and A Star Is Born, we got 2 pretty solid films out of that. This film premiered at a New York Film Festival last October 2025, and it is now streaming on premium. It's not streaming, but it's available digitally on premium VOD. It stars Villanette, Laura Dern, Andra Day, Bradley Cooper as well, Kieran Hines, Sean Hayes. I think I'm not the target audience. I do love me a good divorce drama that has some sort of, I guess, relationship drama in the mix of it all. But I'm so put off by stand up, and you like it way more, Kevin. So maybe we don't have to focus on the stand up straight away, but just on the movie in general. Like, what did you think about it?
I just sort of hate that dunk. Bradley Cooper always is going for its Oscar. With Maestro, I can understand that a bit, but with Star is Born, A Star is Born, when that movie came out, I was 18, not really that much into romance dramas, etc. But A Star is Born was electrifying stuff. I mean, Shallow is still, that soundtrack is still getting played constantly. I absolutely adore A Star is Born. With Maestro, which we both saw at the Venice Film Festival, I thought it's a very solid movie. Some couple of great sequences in that movie as well. Most famously, that 6 minute, orchestra scene in A Search, if I recall correctly. But now with Is This Thing On, it's really feels like Bradley Cooper taking a step back, doing something a bit more low key, as they say. And I adore this choice for him. It really feels like he's way more laid back. He's having a supporting role in this film, which he's so fun to watch in that role. Being like an actor, he was like, oh yeah, like with this beard, do I look like an apostle? Like I've been talked about that. And then he's doing a Western series and he has that type of facial hair. That's so fun to see. But as a drama, I thought it was really good. It feels like a bit of a throwback to those 70s, 80s divorce dramas, like hell, even maybe in the 60s. It expands upon the stand-up scene, which I think is an entry level. Because the stand-up, not a lot of people, I think in America, stand-up is way bigger than it is in Europe or any other places. But I think this is a really good entry-level explanation into stand-up of, oh, no, they don't really, just go on the stage and do their whole thing. Like, no, you get a couple of minutes, you try a joke, you rephrase it, and, the way they take notes is very clean. Like if you watch Mike Birbiglia, the way he takes notes on post-its is mind-boggling, and the way how he constructs shows is really interesting stuff. Like there's an actual artistic process behind stand-up, and the way that Will Arnett's character goes into this and tries to heal himself, try to do something different with his life, I thought was really interesting. Sure, the movie isn't perfect, and the drama that is going on with Bradley Cooper and his wife into the movie isn't I get it's supposed to be this sort of two-way side mirror and reflection of Will Arnett and Laura Dern's relationship and Andrew Days and Bradley Cooper's relationship. But for the rest, I thought this movie was really solid, and I can appreciate this, career choice for Bradley Cooper, if I may say so.
Yeah, I think for me it's just I didn't get anything out of it. I was like, for me it's like, yeah, well made, well acted, but it was sort of like an unmemorable movie overall. So it left me kind of cold in a lot of ways, which is like a bit frustrating because I feel like there's an interesting somewhat core to it, but it's not just like that the stand-up thing. It's also a bit hard to make this sort of premise work on like a guy who goes out and sort of working through his trauma on stage. And I think throughout the whole movie he's, to me at least, so ass at that's the point, right? He starts out, but he's not good at it at all, and I think it just gets very guy on stage talking about divorce and wife, and I'm not that's not my comedy at all. So rooting for that guy is obviously it doesn't have to 1-to-1 be my comedy to connect with it. I really was dreading the scenes where he was on stage for that secondhand embarrassment, that sort of cringe, that anxiety of being up there, but it also being received in a quite warm way. We watched a movie at the Venice Film Festival last year that was about with Willem Dafoe, right, where he's in New York City, where we felt like New York City wasn't present at all. But it was about like these poets rediscovering
late fame.
exactly called late fame, where I was way more like I felt that was it like do you see like that they're somewhat comparable in a way, not just that it's in New York, but these two, like one guy who's like seen by these other people. I think like on a character level it's way more interesting than this was. I didn't really get much out of like the relationship stuff when it is more about like how are they going to, I don't know, the whole premise of like them putting on that they're not broken up yet to the rest of the friend group. Like there was a disconnect for me throughout this whole movie. Like I also didn't really enjoy the Bradley Cooper like pop up of an actor in the different roles. So it feels like, other than like, I think I don't really have much to say other than like all of the stuff that didn't really click with me 100%, and it feels a bit reductive to just like describe the movie that way. But unfortunately, that's sort of what I felt. And yeah, like I gave it like a 6 out of 10. It's all right,
Damn, bro,
but it's definitely my least
I
favorite.
disagree with you hard on this movie. I actually think the stand-up scenes are really. I don't think they're cringe or secondhand embarrassing. That's just the way that stand-up is, and that's also the point that people tried a few times, and especially in those like comedy sellers, like people, the audience will let you know if you're shit or not. And the fact that he does pull through on that gig, and I think even throughout the movie, it's interesting to me how he evolved in conversation. He oftentimes will actually try material in his conversation and become a bit funnier as a person and a bit more lively as a person. And I thought Will Arnett conveyed that magnificently.
Yeah. That, to me, the lead performance is the highlight of the film. I think he does that. Like that's to me like the standout as well.
Oh, by the way, you do know that this is based on a real story as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so you didn't know? Okay. So there's a comedian called John Bishop. You probably know him. No. Yeah. Do. I think it was on Taskmaster. But so he actually got into comedy at a late age. Like he and his wife were going through a situation, and he tried stand-up comedy, and his wife actually was in the audience one night, and she didn't know that he started doing comedy, and that's how they reunited and clicked. And he went on the Graham Norton show and like said, oh yeah, comedy saved my life and saved my marriage. So that's where the idea came from. So is this thing is based on something. I tried to make a joke there. I'm sorry, I failed. The audience would have let me know if I was on stage.
Yeah.
And it's also the moments where he lingers around with his parents. He's trying to convey that moment. He's trying a punchline. Like, okay, how is this the way I convey this information to the best way to my parents? And you see him, his brain grinding, and Laura Dern's character being like, okay, I also want to have a purpose, and that's why they're reuniting. I think that was the strongest aspect for me of the movie, like the fact that they're both in such static places. One wants to redo something old in a new way, and somebody wants to do something new completely.
I mean, what is nice as well is like the way that like what was not working in their relationship, and how it is about things not being said, like sort of trying that out, and through finding the disconnection, finding the truth, right? Very much mirroring the experience you have on stage for stand-up, right? Where you get the immediate feedback, but if you never get the feedback, you feed into things where like you end up being, maybe you think you're right, and you go and have your whole set, and you would like flop like crazy, like you would bomb, and sort of the way that relationship has gone. And then like, to me, ending in a place where I guess we didn't say like spoiler thoughts for this. I think it's still like keeping it quite light on that. But this might be like the most spoilery thing that I'll say, is the sort of turnaround of how you look at someone, if that makes sense, right? With the photo, with the sport. And
I thought the photo thing was great.
I think the photo thing was great too. There were some moments that worked really well for me. When I came out, like final scene in the movie, I was like, I didn't feel much by the end, and I think that's sort of my biggest gripe with it. And maybe it's also just me being a bit disappointed by the expectations I had of like, a late movie that we didn't get to see. It was like another of these spillover movies that it doesn't even release here in Switzerland yet. Like I watched it digitally, right? I think it doesn't come out for another like 1 or 2 months here. Yeah. And sort of the expectations that maybe you place onto it, that it might be another where you get like really great performance or like a great movie, and it didn't live up to that potential. But it's all right. It's my least favorite of Bradley Cooper's, but I think it's still like a well-made film. I
do, if I have to rank them, I do think Star is Born is his best film so far. I actually would put Is This Thing On above Maestro, and it's just the reason that Bradley Cooper is a bit more laid back in this film, and with Maestro, that's really where everyone was like doing the try-harding thing. I mean, like, oh my god, just look at him with all the makeup and etc. This is why Is This Thing On works for me. It also very much feels oftentimes a bit like a European film, funnily enough, especially in the way that it is shot. You sometimes have characters very, especially Arnett and Dern, are always very much close to each other, almost face to face. And in that type of approach, I thought like some European influences. But I gave this thing a 7.5 out of 10. I think it doesn't need to be big, it doesn't need to be heavy, it doesn't need to be dramatic. This movie just wants to have a few tugs at your heartstrings, and that's it. And it did its jobs for me. It isn't a perfect movie by any means, but I really dug Is This Thing On, maybe because I do like stand-up and you don't. It's probably like the same with a hockey movie, an ice hockey movie. You're gonna love that way more than me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, I think that's also an emphasis of our whole show, of our whole stick here, is that we, I think, like, taking away someone's enjoyment of something, like shaming them into like, oh, why do you like this, or why don't you like this, or whatever. I think that's one of the most harmful things you can do in like sort of discourse around culture and media and film. So I'm really happy that you took something away from it more than I did. Certain films you connect with it, some less. I'm at a 6 out of 10, which is still a positive rating for the film overall. Just I guess a bit more neutral. That's our thoughts on this thing on. I'm really curious to see if like people will, because it is such a late arrival, it's not in the Oscar conversation, so it's like even a spillover. In some ways, I think the discussion for this film had already ended because it did premiere last year in some places in the States, and now it's just on VOD. So I think like it just kind of went under. So I'm quite curious at what like Bradley Cooper does next and sort of route that he goes in.
Was he named with Heat 2? I feel like that he got name dropped for Heat 2 at some point.
Oh, I don't know actually.
Or was it Oceans? I don't even remember. I think it was one of the two. But I think Bradley Cooper is a talented
Oceans, for the prequel.
Yeah, Oceans. Yeah, I think Bradley Cooper is a talented person, whether it's acting, whether it's writing, whether it's directing. I don't think he has produced anything bad yet, for me at least.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I'm curious to what he does next. Anyways, let's talk about your yearly dose of Jason Statham action movies. It has arrived. Shelter. A man living in self-imposed exile on a remote island rescues a young girl from a violent storm, setting off a chain of events that forces him out of seclusion to protect her from enemies tied to his past. Sounds like if you replace the old girl with the young girl with an old girl, somewhat similar to The Beekeeper, right? Or like a dozen other action flicks that sort of just want to see the retired guy in exile forced back into things because they have to protect someone. I don't know how I even started the sentence, which I feel like somewhat Jason Statham probably doesn't know when he goes from movie to movie that are similar-ish. But in the expanded cast, you have someone who was recently in Hamnet as well, Body Ray Breathnach, a really hard name to pronounce. I'm really sorry. But she's sort of the girl he's protecting. There's Bill Nye as an antagonist. I don't even see that as a spoiler. And I think something that is quite criminal is that Naomi Aki is just so much like given these like sort of unimportant roles. When it's like, what the fuck are you doing with this actress? She's great. And then she gets these roles that are basically nothing. And it's like, okay, maybe, hopefully she gets a decent paycheck out of it. But I'm always like quite underwhelmed of like the sort of role she's like offered and given. But, you know, we're not here for the character drama. We're here for action. And with that, Kevin, do you think that Shelter is a solid entry for 2026? Like the big, was it? Yeah, it's sort of the big kickoff, right? For 2026 when it comes to action films. Is it a solid one, or are we still holding out for a better to kick off the season?
Ooh, let's look at the yearly Jason Statham films that have come out of the past, right? We got The Beekeeper, that was famously in 2024. That we will get a sequel to next year. I thought The Beekeeper was solid fun. It knew what it was, you know?
Yeah.
Then you got A Working Man, which I was quite underwhelmed by. I gave it a 1.5.
Me too.
That's Jesus Christ. Then you got Shelter. Now, Shelter at least has something going for it, but at the same time, you were talking about, you know, a young girl. He has done this premise in the past with, I believe, a movie called Safe, which after a former elite agent rescues a 12-year-old Chinese girl who's been abducted. Oh my god! Identical premise. And now we got Shelter. But you got Jason Statham also producing this movie, and you got Rick Romanwa, which with a solid director in my opinion. The guy has done great work with Angel Has Fallen, Shot Caller, Greenland. Hell, Felon. Can I just shout out Felon? Felon is a wonderful movie that needs to be seen. Way more underrated Val Kilmer performance. But so Rick Romanov, you know how there are these action directors that, you know, don't do necessarily stellar work but very solid work. I think Rick Romanov is a part of that batch of directors, along with like James Nunn and other type directors. And you know, I think Jason Statham, you know, whenever you see Jason Statham, like, oh, that's Jason Statham. But the guy can be way more, and I feel like he's just not living up to his potential, or at least not as much as potential as he was in like the late 2010. And I like linked a video in the show notes, like, oh yeah, I know what I'm good at. But it's like, brother, you've done like Wrath of Man, which I thought you were great in, and you were in Spy, you were also great. You have comedic chops, and even in his earlier work, Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, like, you can act. You don't necessarily have to always be this stoic, grumpy guy and like this rough guy. You can be way more.
Yeah.
And here he very much is. I feel like he's sort of diving and delving into a late Van Damme. In my very short sentence, I just wrote on Letterboxd, this movie has the crisis of derivativeness. It is very much leading into Bourne, in the beginning especially. You got late Van Damme, you got John Wick at some point. Literally, if this movie added one line of dialogue, and this is for my dog, it would have been a John Wick ripoff. And you also have this Tom Hardy ripoff with his popped up Tom Hardy collar and like the beard and the old man with a change of heart. This movie has a lot of cliches going for it. And I think the fact that this movie is so bare meat on the bones at the same time is the saving grace. If this movie injected way more story into this, it would have been a disaster. So the fact that they, you know, held back a bit on the story and just sort of went from point A to B to C to D, like that made me get through the movie. How about you, man? I got more to say, but I want to hear what you say.
I really tuned out of the film whenever there wasn't an action scene, because it felt like so derivative of not just like the franchises and the people that it's sort of taking the identity off and sprinkling that into like an odd mix of a spice collection that you wouldn't want. But then like you know you are looking for the individual action scenes. I think even with I guess we did review what is it called, The Wrecking Crew or something like that. I keep forgetting the movie. Last week I already forgot it too. And it's like the action there was like plot, like performances, everything was like ugh. But then some of the action moments were like pretty fun. And I think here it is way more of like the bit more basic action of like, I think they're still well done, and you can see that that's what he's good at. Like, you know, like yourself, if you look at his filmography, there really isn't anything that isn't action, at least nothing that really stands out that much. Obviously, like his first two with Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Bells. Like there's a bit of both of them, but still Guy Ritchie, so you do have that sort of comedic style. Like I think one of the things that is also like the expression of like really that he does at certain things, like he has a very like same reaction face in basically all the movies as well, and it's like almost like going up with your brows. You know what I'm talking about, you know, if you've seen Jason Statham. And I think some characters can really benefit from this, others don't. There's no real backbone to this character. There's like almost a reluctance to give me anything. And then the action really has to be as great as something like Havoc, which last year people were shitting on Havoc like crazy, but I think that movie was like so well done. It was so entertaining. It was just balls to the wall action. And this movie is a lot of like still in rooms of like scheming of like, ooh, guy who's at the top going after guy who used to be with them but not anymore. He's the best of the best. Is that sort of the competence porn, right, as well, especially that we get in these action movies. No one can take him down. He's actually this great. And it's always like there was the same problem with The Wrecking Crew. If he set up someone as like this action hero similar to the roles that he takes in like the way that he's just like indestructible, it's always boring as an action movie, because it's like what has to be thrown at him to even stop him, other than like, you know, chasing after something or like trying to survive is way more thrilling to watch. And then he also doesn't really struggle to keep her alive like that much. Like that's not really an issue either. For some reason, it like does the weird thing of like an infected foot, and the amount of foot shots of this girl that we get in the beginning of this movie was like very uncomfortable to me. So like, a lot of like odd choices, underwhelming. And like
odd choices, but it isn't still as fine. Bad.
No, it's not horrible. It's like very watchable, but it's also very forgettable.
Yeah, exactly. And the action for me is okay. It's really only the bar. It isn't getting below that action bar purely because of the involvement of Jason Statham and Rick Roman. Any other director, any other main actor, I think this movie falls below that bar. And there's a lot of decent locations, but hey, at the end I really like, okay, now we're gonna fight in front of the O2 in London. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing here? And yeah, indeed, no Miyake is absolutely underused. But my favorite moment, sure, at the end, I don't care about spoilers in this regard, but at the end, they're watching the young girl, and she's like, oh yeah, no, she's drinking a hot cup of cocoa in Spanish. So she's in Spain, it's like, oh yeah, she's reading a hot cup of cocoa, and she's reading a book, and then one guy's like, zoom in and uprest. It's like, whoa, what are you doing this for? Because it's so suspicious to drink hot cocoa in Spain when it's hot, and I don't know what you're zooming in for. But I just wanted to get into.
I do have another favorite line that was like when I think I don't know if it's the girl or someone asks like who I don't know, it is the girl. It's like, who is this? And the other guy, his friend that has cancer, is like, him 20 years ago. That's so funny. I don't know why, but I was like, him 20 years ago. Like, damn, he had that ready. He like immediately, that was his response.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the derivative we're also talking about, with sending a hitman after the talented guy is very much a boring thing and staple to do.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get into the production company thing. So with these action movies, you always have the production company that are usually making them. You got Black Bear in this case, who has worked on Working Man, who has done Guy Ritchie's The Ministry of Gentlemanly Warfare, and has done Neeson's Memory. They have done solid other work that I'm not mentioning at the moment, but they have done some other solid movies. So it's not like they're a shit production company. Obviously not.
No, they got Motor City too, right?
Yeah,
they got
Motor
the
City,
upcoming
like
Reptilia. They got a ton of stuff. They're doing the next Guy Ritchie film. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of wonderful stuff they have done and are going to do. Motor City, we've both watched already.
No, I haven't,
but then,
unfortunately. I actually haven't seen
forgot. Sorry.
Rub it in. Sorry.
I didn't mean
sorry.
to shoot that.
Did you want me to cut myself and put the wound there so you can pour salt in it?
No. Because I watched these action movies, I recognize the production companies behind them. But now it was like Cinemachine. And it's like, I've never heard of this production company in my life. So I went to look at it. And it's led by Rick Roman Waugh and another dude called Brendan something. I forgot, my bad. And it's like, it signed a first look deal with Lionsgate, if I recall correctly. And is focused on expanding its producing initiatives with exciting filmmakers in the elevated genre space. Talent working on projects with something to say across the action, thriller, sci-fi, and horror genres. And then here I am like, what is Shelter trying to say? I have no clue. With Greenland, I can understand that, right?
But
because it's also done Greenland 2 Migration, but with Shelter, I have no clue.
It's loosely corruption. It's loosely corruption from the high level and cover-ups of sort of doing the right thing will get you punished and exiled.
Yeah. But what is elevated about this?
Maybe his hairline that's not on his head anymore because he's bald.
So he's got a thicker beard. He's like
exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And
opposite.
Yeah, and it's all the circles that comes back around. I don't know.
No, but you said like, do we like where Statham is at in this last few years? And for me, not really. Beekeeper, I can sort of give an exception to, but now with Shelter and with a Working Man last year especially, that was edited so dreadfully. It's like, man, I just want you to go back to working with actually successful directors. I want you to expand upon yourself and not be in this little box that you made for yourself. I think he was great in Spy. In the Furious films, he's also very fun to watch, but especially Wrath of Man with Guy Ritchie was such a phenomenal action movie. He was really good in Expendables, but Statham needs to get out of this box that he has created for himself. Like, oh yeah, I know what I'm good at, but you are capable of more, and I know you are because I've seen it. And I don't know why he doesn't go for it.
I mean, he is literally just, I guess, a working man in this sort of action film industry, right? He doesn't really care for more, which is disappointing. But I think it's like, it feels similar to, like, on a director level, what Guy Ritchie has been doing. I feel like he's just cranking out stuff that I don't connect with at all. Maybe I never connected with his stuff as much as others have, but I feel like his previous stuff was way more interesting. And, you know, them both coming out of, you know, Guy Ritchie first couple of movies that Jason Statham did, and the sort of similar trajectory that they have, obviously like crossing paths sometimes as well. It's an interesting like comparison to make, but yeah, I hope we get a bit more solid action that's like, a lot of it feels like it's made for not the cinema but for streaming, of just like the yearly crank out of yet another action film, which is a bit disappointing if you're actually seeking that stuff out.
He's doing another movie this year called Mutiny, directed by Jean-François Richet.
Yeah.
Again, another very solid director. I mean, you got Plane. He had done the Mesrin movies, Bloodfather, which I also really enjoyed. So that's gonna be another. Again, the bar is there, and it's just gonna be. Is it gonna be on par? Is it gonna be better, or is it gonna be below it? With Jean-François Richet, I got a little bit more confidence than with Rick Roman Waugh in terms of like the premise, etc. But
yeah,
you know,
I mean, I also thought that like there's a scene in a nightclub where they do like silent stabbings, and then there's a shootout, and I think that like if you do it in the style of John Wick, that might be passable because it's It's okay because it's a whole different world. I feel like with the recent spree of violence, like year after year in the States, it was to me a bit of an iffy scene as well. I was like, I don't really like this. It didn't distinguish
which
itself.
scene?
Like they were there in the nightclub and then like
The nightclub scene. Like, even on a production level, I felt like that nightclub scene was like really atrocious, because nightclubs have been like a staple in action movies in recent years. Just look at last year's Havoc, mind-boggling.
Exactly.
Like when they're up there.
That was pretty solid.
That felt really lackluster this year. Jason Statham also has The Beekeeper 2 coming out, and that is directed by Timothée, which the night comes for us and the shadow strays. The action, love Timothée as an action director, and I think he's definitely a level up on Jean-François Richet and Rick Romanov. So I know The Beekeeper 2 is gonna be at least way more entertaining than Shelter, Working Man, etc.
Exactly. So for me, I give this movie still like a solid 5 out of 10. I think it's a very serviceable movie.
Same.
Nothing hateable about it. It's just like a bit derivative, like actually not a bit. It's derivative of other action movies and that whole its own premise actually as well. But
yeah,
it's okay. Anyways, let's talk about some spotlight films, Kevin. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
We got something to spotlight from you. Yeah. We do have something that you created this week, actually, to spotlight.
Oh, yeah. I'm allowed to talk about it because I finished it. You said last year, last week. You
exactly.
said, like,
if you don't finish, yeah.
I finished the montage, which is up on the channel right now. 2025 in cinema. A montage told in 3 chapters. The first one, very much an introduction to 2025, has some action parts in it because a friend of mine was saying like, I was looking forward to like an actual action section, but the action cinema in 2025 wasn't really that great considered compared to 2024. You got a little documentary section in there, dance section as well, then animation section as well. Then you got the second act, which is very much focused on horror, because horror had a stellar year in 2025, and highly likely will also have a stellar year in 2026. So looking forward to actually like thinking about that already. Then we got the last chapter, which is very much focused on drama movies. And yeah, I'm really proud with the end result. Like, I do feel like it's an improvement on last year's montage, because that was my first montage ever. And this year's I like 336 films, man, and I'm actually only seen about half of them. So it was a massive undertaking, but I'm really happy it's just out there right now and that people are enjoying it. Got a lot of compliments on it, and yeah.
It's perfect for a rewatch as well, and you're trying to spot as many movies that you recognize as you can. Because there's certain moments where like you only have a couple of frames per movie, you know? So quick cuts. But also if you go through it chronologically and you're actually wondering what movies are, you also made a list that like is like for the first appearance for all of those films. So we'll have that link to we can have it linked below this, but also no, just go to the video and it will be there in the comments. And on our HQ account on Letterboxd, you should also find it. But just a great celebration of the, like, literally last night when I was like supposed to watch like another 3 movies, I took 12 minutes to rewatch it.
Really?
And I watched it on my TV over here on 4K, and it looked stellar.
And the thing I'm definitely the most proud of is how international my montage is. Usually with these montages, like, it's very much American movie, then the movie that have popped up above the radar for the general audience. But I really like wanted films from every continent. Like, there's a few movies from Africa in there, like a movie from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got quite a few Asian cinema in there, but that's just because I'm quite well tapped into it. You got a lot of European films in it and a lot of movies from America, naturally. So really proud on that aspect of my montage. I think I'm the most proud of that aspect, actually, of the amount of worldwide cinema that I did put into the montage, which is obviously our goal of the podcast as well.
Exactly, spotlighting a whole bunch of stuff. So speaking on that, did you with how busy you were finishing finishing the montage, I assume you didn't have any time to watch anything else this week?
No, unfortunately not. But hey, once this week is over, I'm locked in. Like, I got a Jason Statham movie.
3-hour episodes coming in.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah, 100%. I actually do have a Jason Statham movie ready, like Revolver, to watch for next week. So yeah, I do have a lot of, and even older cinema, I will definitely check out as well. Yeah, looking forward to the shackles of being busy and
the shackles of being busy, being gone.
Yeah,
You're unleashed to shackle yourself again to like something else. Oh my god!
But I know you are busy, always watching movies, binging movies quite literally. I'm looking at the movies that you have watched. You know, I know you have them in certain type of order.
Yeah,
I want you to start with Diane and Relentless, man. You sent me a few frames of that movie, and it's like, what are we watching? Why is she dedicating this documentary to 2 of her dead pets?
So I gave this movie a 3 out of 10, by the way, which I feels like still pretty gracious because it is a pretty shameless self promotion of like people calling her to be great, and then also. Basically the back end of this movie is just like her really wanting an Oscar and not getting it, and why that's actually so unfair in a way, and like a bunch of reactions of like just them reacting to like if they I don't know if they ever look at the precursors of the Oscars, because I feel like a lot of people go in kind of blind of like, oh yeah, anything could happen. It's like nope. Nope. Because I think this stuff is like, you know, we have the precursors we do see, but I wrote down as my quick review: chip on your shoulder, this woman has a whole imaginary poker set on her back. You know, poker chips, that was my yeah. Anyways, she has some hit songs, you know, she has some great songs, but I feel like it is the commercialization of like the credits song and like wanting to get an Oscar for that, and like at one point it goes over the rest of her collection of stuff that she's gotten a Globe, she's gotten this, she's gotten that, but she's never gotten that statue. I was like, who gives a flying fuck, man? You're making money, you're rich, but no, I'm so desperate for that validation. Just one Oscar, please. And it's like, I cannot relate to this one bit. This is like Relentless, but it's also fucking annoying. Just like move on.
Especially the way that she recently was in the media. I'll make songs for any movies. Christopher Nolan, you can call me. It's like, but a Diane Warren song for the Odyssey. Are you out of your mind?
and I love something like I think K-pop Demon Hunter is such a phenomenon. When the song is actually in the movie, that's what it should get nominated for. I think it's also a pretty silly category overall at the Oscars regardless. I think it's sort of redundant, and it is sort of a way for like someone who wouldn't get an Oscar in the film sphere otherwise to get one. Exactly. It's basically an EGOT machine, and I don't know. She was just like, it was such a like bare bones boring documentary as well, where like I think it started recording like in 2021 and it came out in 2024 maybe even. Like this thing has been done for a while. Yeah, it came out in 2024. It sort of follows her for a period of time where she's like always working, always busy. It also goes into her, but like her being on the spectrum too, and maybe like talking about like that she's got no interest in any romance, just work. I just feel like this sort of industry validation that she's seeking on like not just her peers but also from like a body, like an awards body is really like I've like even if her songs are great, I just don't like her. It's like so off-putting to me. So
and her pet, what's that about?
Well, at one point it like does like a dramatic beat and like the score goes all sad, and it's like because the pet has died, and that like, obviously like, having no life partner, that maybe is some significance, but it's like the most random thing where the documentary consists of these interviews, right? That feeding lines, montages of like people saying similar things about her, very like textbook sort of editing class for documentaries. Very boring approach. And then following her for a while, and then that's one of the things that happen apart from her losing is like that her pets die, and then also one dies like off screen that I don't even recognize that it was on there, but like they have an in memoriam for for those animals, and it feels like sort of so self-involved in a way that like that's the statement at the end. Like it feels so vain, so nothing. What a crazy film to be nominated over. Come on, Girl in a Bubble. Like literally, like come on. The song as well is so ass too. Like the one she recorded with Kesha.
Well, thank God they're not gonna play it on the Oscars, because they're only gonna play 2 songs if I
There's
recall
only
correctly.
2 ones that are relevant enough to be played.
Yeah.
And she also was talking about that, like that's like, no, you play all of us or none of us, or she should be playing all of us. And I was like, this award show is not about you, Diane Warren, as much as you want it to be. It really isn't. So yeah, I don't know if she'll stop if she ever gets an Oscar, but it's just, I guess, a meme that she's never winning one. But
to be fair, it's a meme I'm happy to indulge in.
Well, I'm also not rooting for her downfall or for her like not success. I just wish she would just do her work like everyone else does. Like people call Bradley Cooper desperate for an Oscar. This is a whole other league here.
You know, we're both single men. Like we
Speak for
didn't have a
yourself.
Valentine.
Oh, actually, I actually don't have anything funny to grab. I was like, speak for yourself. Yeah, we're both single men. Continue.
We're
Sorry.
both single men. We obviously didn't have a Valentine, so is that why you watched Blue Valentine?
I did. I also watched 9.5 Weeks, which I didn't even put in the show notes because it was so atrocious and like so. I saw Paul Mescal because they did a post, like they had a post on Letterboxd where they were asking like the sexiest movies or something like that. No, I think maybe it was Jacob Elordi. I can't remember who it was. One of those 2 hunks, and one of them mentioned that as like a sexy movie, and it was like. It was so unsexy. It wasn't sexy at all. And I was like, okay, let's just do sad boy feels of like the Blue Valentine, because I think definitely Paul Mescal has talked about like that movie and how he loves it. And I think a lot of like younger actors like in the late 20s have talked about that film and praising it and how important it was to them. And that's one of their favorite films of all time. I think it's very solid. Like it's from the director who had a movie out last year as well with Roofman, but also Place Beyond the Pines. He hasn't made that many movies, Derek. Cyan France? Jean-France? Jean-France is actually like, maybe he's Canadian, could be. But this one stars Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams, retraces the love story, and it's very easy to tell if they're in the present or in the back or in the past, because Ryan Gosling is like very balding in this movie in the present, and it's sort of them the way that they fell in love and fell out of love, and a lot of it is like so many like little frustrations that they have with each other. It's incredibly well put together that way, and definitely a movie that I think everyone should seek out at one point in their life. I definitely recommend it to you as well, even if you haven't gone through
on
that.
Valentine's Day.
The funny thing was I did that totally unintentionally, and as I was watching, I was like, wait, it's fucking Valentine's Day, and I'm watching something that has Valentine in the title. I was like, I'm such a fucking dumbass, but that makes sense. That makes sense that just accidentally happens to me.
How about Red Rooms? I'm really curious your thoughts.
So I just saw again. I'm seeing like it's working. The TikTok stuff is working. But someone whose opinion I think is quite fun to listen to, like Seth Film Reviews. He was talking about that
me.
guy. Sometimes, maybe sometimes I listen to you. But I saw that. I think a couple of people have that like as one of their favorite films of all time. No, he made a video about like all the movies he gave a 5-star to, and it was one of the few ones of the last couple of years. And I was like so curious because people were talking about that film as like a really modern approach of like actually getting the scary stuff about like this online lingering, like understanding the dark parts of the internet, the dark web, and sort of like the feelings, encapsulating them in like a horror film. No one has done it as successfully as Red Rooms, and I probably would agree, because it centers around this 20-something woman who is very like hard to get a read on, and there's this trial of a very like violent crime that has been committed on 3 teenage girls that have publicly been like dismembered in a live stream on the dark web, and the sort of trials of like how to deal with this. They don't really know because it's like there's no precedent for this. And then her being in the courtroom, there's also another girl who is sort of infatuated by the guy and like thinks he's innocent. And I think it's like such an like eerie, like if you want nightmares, you watch Red Rooms. I think it's one of the scariest movies. And a lot of people have given it that label, and you have to be careful because like then people go in, okay, scare me. And I think it's just so eerie because like it speaks to something that it feels like it's lingering, but you don't see it. It's like it's on the surface. It's like the uneasiness of our times, of the digital landscape, and like some things that are happening that are really, really dark. Yeah, it haunted me.
I think it's for sure one of the creepiest ones in the past few years. One for sure.
Yeah, I forgot that you've seen it. Have you seen it then?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Sorry, I was like doing this whole thing without you pitching it halfway to you as well.
No, it's good. I've seen like a bit more than 2 years ago.
Right.
Very, very good movie. Yeah.
It's so haunting, man. Oh God.
No.
Anyways, what do you want to? You are throwing me out of loop of my order of things, but what do you want me to talk about next?
I think you've talked about 2 good movies now. Now you can go back to the atrocious ones. How about Mercy and Solomio? Like surely masterpieces, those, right?
I actually grouped them together right in this as well. With Mercy, people were name dropping what was the Ice Cube film called last year, War of the Worlds. And in the way that it's, I think, similar, that it's just like the same location, right? That most of it takes place in. And it then has Rebecca Ferguson as this AI that is a judge that is the judge, jury, and executioner, where you're like strapped in for an hour and a half into this movie, but also in the chair that could be the one that's about to kill you as you are being accused of a crime. And there's like a rate of sureness that you have that you're actually guilty. And then it becomes about sort of uncovering that maybe what's the truth, right? And then it becomes like this cop guy who is actually the one like setting this whole thing up, which played by Chris Pratt, who is accused of having murdered his wife, and uncovering this whole plot as they like work together. And it's sort of, first you feel like, okay, it might be a movie about AI and pointing out its flaws, and it then becomes a symbiosis of these two working together. And it's like, oddly, of what this movie has been fairly criticized for, that it's very like pro AI, and it's an odd film. I think it's like not as bad as War of the Worlds. It's just very
wait. I have to ask you, is it more entertaining than War of the Worlds?
It is. I think it is.
It is
more entertaining. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
because it obviously it goes around, like it is sort of gimmicky in the way that it wants to stay in a lot of like recorded footage and him being in the same room, but we have outside perspectives that are obviously calling in to sort of spice up the world. But like there's a scene where like they are at a crime scene, and then just like a cop just like on a quad bike just leaps off and takes off into the air, and it's like it looks so fucking like it's futuristic, right? It's not
yeah
but it's like it's such a funny thing of them just like shooting up into space. It also is a sort of type of movie that does make sense for someone as gutless as Chris Pratt, which isn't just a take of him being heavier and now actually having no gut left of just being a hunk of a six-pack sort of guy, but that it is weirdly pro cops too, of like the sort of cop movie where like there's a bad apple and you gotta find out who it is. Like I don't know, I don't like, on that premise level, I really just don't like the movie to begin with. It's also just bland in the twists and turns, pretty boring overall. It's fine though. It could be worse, you know. It could be worse. I gave it a 2 out of 10. It's a very horrible movie, but it could be worse. I think it was a bit overemphasized. I think it's not as bad as War of the Worlds. And I think people are like, oh, worst movie of the year. And I was like, I'm sure there will be 10 movies that are worse than this guy is also going to see. So
yeah,
I'm
not
ready.
Me though.
You're not,
him,
and I think that's
for sure.
Like it came out on VOD, so I was like, sure, I'll give it a try. I'll give it a spin.
How about Solomio?
Solomio was the Angel Studios. Like they tried to do like a fucking Marty Supreme level Timothée Chalamet type of promotional thing. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like Kevin James in like a variety of different settings. Like they did it at the Super Bowl too. It was like, oh, he's still waiting in Rome for his lover, and was like something like that, because he gets stood up at the altar, and it's just Kevin James looking sad at these these sporting events of being stood up, and that was their promotion. It was like made by a bunch of brothers, or I don't know if they're all brothers or like somewhat related and just share the last name, but that was a part of the story as well. These Kinane, I don't know, but there's like two of them are directors, two of them are producers or writers or whatever. I think it was like 7 of them. It's an Angel Studios film, right? That sort of right-wing-ish, more at least where the money is coming from, and it's just like a very meatless romance where it's about this guy who gets stood up at the altar and maybe he meets someone else, and that's it. And it's also Rome. It very much is in the vein of like a Adam Sandler movie that was like on location, so they get to have a holiday there while they shoot a movie, and here's just like the romance equivalent of that. And it's also, I'm not buying him in any sort of relationship. He feels like such a doofus. He feels like such a boring fucking loser. And the person who falls in love with him is like this really Italian beauty. And I'm like, really? Okay. But again, this one could have been worse. I gave it a 4 out of 10. It's fine. But it's just very bland and boring.
Now let's do some throwback to some older movies.
Okay, what do you want to start with?
How about Targets? You talked
Targets.
about Bogdanovich. Last week you watched the Last Picture Show.
Yeah.
You haven't seen Paper Moon or you have seen Paper Moon. You haven't seen Where's Doc?
No, I said last week already that my next one is going to be Targets, and I followed up on that. It was one of the movies that I like. It was one I stayed up until over midnight, past midnight to watch this movie. And I think the premise itself is quite interesting, gives you an understanding what the movie's about. It's an aging horror movie icon's fate intersects with that of a seemingly ordinary young man on a psychotic shooting spree around Los Angeles. I think what's notable about this, it's a directorial debut. It came out in 1968, and it feels incredibly more of its time now than it probably did in the late 60s. The aging horror icon is played by Boris Karloff, who's known for his portrayal of Frankenstein's monster in like a countless amount of movies and sequels and the whole franchise, like Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, like House of Frankenstein, like I don't know. Maybe he's also in a helicopter. Maybe he goes to space at some point, the way that they're franchising this. But he has, a lot of it is also documentaries and movies about him. But like, he has 241 acting credits on Letterboxd. The guy was acting. And this was also towards the back end, like a year after this movie came out, he passed away. There were a few more roles that came out from stuff that he had shot before. But it really is like sort of also a career send-off in a way for him as a person too. So I don't know much about him, so I don't know how much it intersects, but it really is an interesting look at an industry inside thing of him basically like quitting on his next movie and everyone scrambling around it, and the sort of setting that it goes to, like a drive-in theater where like one of the shootings takes place that this the other guy is doing. That's where the sort of places intersect, and I expected the movie to be like sort of intersect way earlier, and it really doesn't. It's sort of just like the culmination of the movie where they overlap, and it's sort of really two different tales that are happening at the same time, and it's a really interesting approach to tell a story like this. I was blown away. I think you'd love this film as well. It is so mesmerizing. I was considering that I would give this a 5-star rating on a first watch. Even like I think this is my favorite of his films that I've seen so far, and it's just so impressive. I saw someone on Letterboxd say like puts to shame like the Joker discussions that were happening at that point like a couple of years back, right? The discourse around that, and that he said like he would absolutely hate this movie if it came out this like now, and I sort of agree. It's like sort of a movie that is so interesting to look at because it came out in that time. Honestly, I don't want to say too much because it really is very striking, and it's incredibly uncomfortable in like the straightforwardness in its approach. It really is a guy who is just shooting because he is just like sort of bored of life, and then he just does it, and there's no real reason to it, and it's like it's so uncomfortable that like to be confronted with that, the ease of access of these weapons and like just doing it. And yeah, really really great movie, Targets. Go watch that. Crazy that like that has not been on my radar like until last week.
I adore Paper Moon and The Last Picture Show. So the fact that you're saying that this is your favorite amongst those, damn. All right, cool. I unfortunately don't own it. I wanted to say that sentence so bad, but
yeah,
I will watch it. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, you got Sophie's Choice.
Yeah, I mean, last week I also talked about All the President's Men, a movie that obviously no one has ever seen. You were joking about that, like, oh, we don't know the story. And then Sophie's Choice is sort of an expression, right, that has been coined through this when a character has to choose between two horrible choices. Basically, you know, you can't make a choice. That's a Sophie's Choice. And this movie is an adaptation of a novel that is about a woman who is in the US post World War I, was in a concentration camp and is now in a romance with someone, and then a aspiring writer moves into the same house as they are, like in the same apartment complex, and they start like a friendship. So it's told through the POV of this like sort of southern guy who has like his accent coming in and like being all fed up with all excited about, I guess, the potential of her. Like he's really is like in love with her. And I think the whole framing device, which I think is taken from the novel, it is so incredibly off-putting. A lot of it just is wrong in the construction from the ground up. And then you got a really, really amazing performance from Meryl Streep, who does a lot of like accent work here that is, I think, is quite believable. And obviously is going through the hardship of last week, you know, you did mention that with Albert Brooks defending her life, that she's like a goat. And I had that sort of vocal stim in the back of my mind as I was watching Sophie's Choice. I was like, I kept hearing Kevin go like, she's the goat, she's the goat, she's the goat. I was like, yeah, no, it's very true for this movie as well. And
I mean, she's been nominated 21 times, you know. Like, she's won 3.
I only won 3 out of those, but like someone who's recognized.
For the Iron Lady, for Sophie's Choice, and for Kramer versus Kramer.
When did Kramer versus Kramer come out? Was this her first Oscar win?
Yeah, Kramer versus Kramer was her first Oscar win.
This came out in 82, so...
and Kramer versus Kramer was 79.
Right. Yeah, very deserved Oscar win here. It's just a messy movie as well. It's like overlong. It's 2.5 hours. But I felt like I'm missing out on sort of this expression of Sophie's Choice, which I feel like it's a conundrum. It's like, I don't know if I think for this movie, do you know what the choice is she has to make? Like,
yes, I've not seen the movie, but I know because so many things have parodied or like made a joke about Sophie's Choice. Oh, it's a Sophie's Choice.
Yeah,
like that has been like an actual saying and like wording.
And I was kind of surprised, like last week when I talked about All the President's Men, I was saying you can't really go wrong with a movie like this because it's so straightforward. I was like, oh no, can the director not do any better? Is that the issue of Alan J. Pakula? That like he's just a boring director. And I don't know, I think Presumed Innocent is the only other one that I've seen of his, which I think was quite straightforward. I've
had the Parallax View on my radar for a long time.
All right, I mean, I already have it on my. No, I actually didn't have that on my watch list, but I had it on my radar too to watch at one point. But yeah, I think his filmmaking is just kind of stale. Like The Devil's Own is one that has sort of Harrison Ford in that poster has been staring at me for so long because it's also available on Netflix, and that was, you know, one movie that wasn't from the 21st century on Netflix. You might like this, and they keep blastering it to me, but I haven't watched it yet.
I know what you mean.
But that movie also has like a 2.9 on Letterboxd. So yeah, I just think maybe he gets like great actors, but makes sometimes great movies, sometimes not, depending on whatever he's given. But
I would just say great material, but
great material, yeah. So I'm not really impressed by his filmmaking so far, but I'll have to see more to make my full judgment. But Sophie's Choice.
I think that's everything of your spotlight. Or do you want to talk about another medium?
Yeah, so with the start of, I don't have Wuthering Heights here anymore because it's actually now at the cinema where we are selling it alongside the movie screening there. But all of these, I actually have a little new segment that might not be every week, but Ewan's Book Corner, because this week I actually went pretty crazy in the amount of audiobooks I listened to. Yeah, he's about to fall asleep on. This could also be a sign for a book to open, but Kevin is like, no, I'm falling asleep on it. But I would.
That's what books are for, right?
No, the books, especially the small ones, are if you have an uneven thing with like a table or something to put it under them to like stable them.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I didn't read any of these. I listened to the audiobooks because the free books I read this week were Project Hail Mary, Sunrise on the Reaping, and Reminders of Him. I know these are all like quite commercial books, but they all are getting adaptations sooner than later. Actually, 2 of them are coming out next month on March 13th. We're getting Reminders of Him, that Colin Hoover like adaptation. I can say it's just I have never read a Colin Hoover book, but I now know why it's like sort of the emotional trauma and smut go hand in hand with her, and that's sort of what she does, I believe, with basically all of her stories. And I can see Micah Monroe in this lead role already. I mean, we've gotten trailers, so I can literally see her in that role. That's going to be, not something for me, but I did listen to the audiobook, and it is a story. And I also read Verity, another movie Colin Hoover adaptation that we're getting this year. Something that many people have praised, Project Hail Mary, is starring Ryan Gosling in that adaptation from the same author who wrote The Martian. Many people were like sort of like again space travel, the impending doom of the Earth as like in a weird way from the sun. The sun is like fading out in a way, and reasons why that is have to be explored and hopefully found a solution for the impending doom of the Earth. And there's this Project Hail Mary that I think the construction of the story, I don't know how 1-to-1 they'll do that in the movie, but the way it starts is like him having memory loss, and it then goes back and forth of what he can like remember and piecing together the story. And it quite conveniently, it's also explained in the story as well, but it quite conveniently like leads up to as these it leads up to him going on this mission and the mission going further and further. I think it's a very easy read, very entertaining, and I can see this movie making quite a splash on the box office, similar to The Martian. And I think Ryan Gosling can definitely carry that. In a lot of ways, it is like a lot of like engineer satisfaction of like, he's also a teacher, science teacher who would have had the capabilities to maybe actually do research, but he then went down a different path. So he has like a lot of that knowledge that is sprinkled in. He's quite an interesting lead character to have. Like, it's a very easy guy to root for, but you can also see that it feels a bit constructed in how easy it is to root for. And in Sunrise on the Reaping, I'm a big fan of the Hunger Games franchise. You know, I've like especially the books I read when I was a teenager. I read all of them. Then I sort of aged out of them, obviously, and I didn't read that like latest one that came out in 2020, I think. And then there was another one that came out last year, which is getting adapted already, Sunrise on the Reaping. It was sort of explored that in the second quarter, like the 50th Hunger Games, Haymitch, the survivor there, is a character in the franchise for the original Hunger Games story. And I think it's sort of said what happens in the books, but also it's just sort of known about. So like you knew the ending of it, and this was like the full construction of all of it now. And it expands this world in a way that I think is hammering home the same points that the Hunger Games franchise already did, but maybe at an earlier spark, when you know that this like thing that they're fighting for is not going to come to fruition until like 24 years later, or even later than that. And I think that was quite an interesting, approach for the story. It's fine. It's like very much like still a YA novel, but I was quite entertained. That was like a very easy listen as an audiobook version too. So yeah, that's what I was up to this week. I don't know if I'll read another 3 books, but
I just quickly wanted to go back to Project Hail Mary because I didn't realize that Drew Goddard wrote the screenplay for Project Hail Mary. I thought, Christopher Lord and Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, like, they do a lot of things themselves, so I figured they wrote it themselves. But no, Drew Goddard wrote Project Hail Mary, so I'm actually really curious to that.
Yeah, and he also did the adaptation of The Martian already, right? So yeah, definitely could see that. Also, in that story, the Sandra Hulla character, I think she's Danish she actually is Danish or Dutch. I'm loving to mix up.
If it's Dutch, I should know.
The thing is, obviously she's German. So I don't know if they changed the nationalities here for the actual character, or if she just has vague European accent. But she's a character who basically in the midst of this is getting total authority over like everything, and sort of like means to an end trying to solve this crisis, and like sort of brings him in, right, as a school teacher, science teacher of like not even high school, I think it's like middle school. And it's like, why this guy? And I like her character quite a lot, and sort of the directions it goes. It's going to be a very fun movie, I can already tell you, and I'm looking forward to it now. That's my lengthy spotlight section done. Reminder, if you want to recommend us some of these movies, that we should watch throughout the week to spotlight, but also films that are potentially a good fit for our Spotlight World Cinema section, leave them down in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, share it. It helps us reach a wider audience, exactly bring those movies that we cherish to people who might not otherwise watch them, which is ultimately the goal of the show. And if you want to connect with us further, also on Discord, you can join a, I guess, not so active community, but we'd love to have it more active yet again, Kevin, do you want to introduce us to this week's Spotlight World Cinema?
This week's Spotlight World Cinema, it is Fat Choi Spirit. It is very much famous for being a Chinese New Year staple watch. I honestly, low-key, almost want to say it's the Home Alone of China. From what I know.
Yeah, from what you could gather, it sort of has that same rewatchability for a lot of people. I can see that, definitely.
It is a movie obviously made by Johnny To with his freaking collaborator Wai Ka-fai. It came out in 2002, and it follows the adventures of compulsive Mahjong player named Andy and his aging mother, a strange brother, loyal ex-girlfriend, and a local gang. We've talked about plenty of Johnny To's movies in the past on the podcast. We've talked about Election 1 and 2. We've talked about Exile, and we have talked about Breaking News. Most importantly, this is your first, comedic Johnny To film. The guy, in my opinion, has done it all. He has mastered all of the genres, but you very much have seen his crime, thriller, action side of his filmography. But this is your first entry into, the very goofy, very weird comedic side of him. What do you think about it? Because you actually know more about Mahjong than me, and I've seen this movie twice.
The thing is, towards the, I'd say, second half of the movie, I was like, I want to know what's going on, because it feels like just people shuffling around. Because a lot of these scenes, similar to a sports movie, center around showing us what's going on, but it's always in quick flashes to make sure we don't, overly pay attention to this. Not because it wouldn't make sense, because I think that's very accurate that the whole thing makes sense as they're playing it, but to understand the tensions and all in the scene, I think it was quite relevant. And it's a pretty simple game overall. I think you could understand it in I just watched a 15-minute video, and I understood all of the rules, especially some of the outsider ones that are more important for, because at one point it's a bit more about the game making side when you are betting. And in the video that I watched, it was this is probably not relevant for you if you're playing it, but if you play for money, this is what's relevant. And then literally the scene after, they were saying Kong over and over again, and it's the thing that's relevant for what I just watched. And I was like, yes, it's so rewarding to understand it a bit further, which in a larger sense, just different cultures with this world cinema thing. It's just understanding them a bit more is what's so fruitful, so rewarding about all of this. So I really, really recommend everyone to just like, the 1-inch barrier to overcome them and just watch more stuff, because it's very different comedically from what I'm used to. A lot of these characters are one note in a sense of like the repeating bit that they bring just gets escalated in like not even further in like sort of an evolution of the character, but it's sort of a divulgence. It's like spins off, comes back. It's like almost like a yo-yo that you throw and then it comes back, but it's like every time it's like some sort of different thing that happens. And not all of them are that. I think the ex-girlfriend character is especially like that, where she is like not someone who I would like. I found her in the beginning quite frustrating, because she's someone who throws herself at him, and it feels like we are presented with a lead character played by Andy Lau, who's just like this guy who people just find effortlessly cool, and she just wants to be desperately married to him, and like, when are we going to do this? And it's just, will they, won't they? But he's actually not interested. And I think that beat was repeated to me. It was like, okay, if this is the whole thing, and it actually wants us to have like some sort of ending closure to this that isn't just like a joke, then I'm going to be annoyed by it a bit. Then it sort of won me over, because the amount of times it just like is so odd and ridiculous, where I was just, sometimes it's like you're getting caught up in what's happening, and then it's just like some stupid bit, and it's like, okay, that was really funny. And it sort of catches you off guard. Like just one bit where she has like an estranged mother because he's a gambler. They haven't talked to each other for a while, and they're like on the phone, and like the mother has dementia. Dementia is also used as like a comedy device, not as a character device or any sort of, there's no depth to it. It actually could feel in a way like sort of exploitative, but I think it also, it's just funny, and then it's redeemable. Like don't care if it's like it to some people might be offensive or reductive, because it's funny. They are like on the phone, and they're like, oh, where are you, my son? It's like, meet up. And then she's like, oh, try to see where she's at, and she doesn't know the address. She walks down the street, and then he's just there, and she's like asking him, it's like, hey, can you help me like talk to my son? And I was like, and it's like the brief moment he sent me that I was also like almost pausing because it was so funny, where it's like has both phones in his hand. Very, very funny movie that has some bits that didn't 100% land with me. Like some of the gang stuff felt a bit too repetitive, but then other moments that win me over. So it's like a push and pull of like stuff that works, stuff that doesn't, and it never feels like, and I think with these movies from Johnny To is like, what I felt is like that he's never going the safe route. He just goes somewhere and I'm along for the ride, and it's just like very entertaining. And with that, you got the pairing of the filmmaking expertise of the way that he's shooting all of this stuff. You got Andy Lau as his presence, even like his brother character, I think was quite compelling. Of the guy who's like, it feels almost sadistic in the way that it like sort of exploits him, that he's like chewed up and spit out by this world. And then I thought like, okay, is there going to be like some redeeming thing about him where like they're the brothers that are great at this? I was like, it's like no, more on the background, and Andy Lau's character steps more in the foreground again. And I think it's like, it's not too deep. Don't think too much about it. It's just like, especially for that rewatchability, it's a very light film at the end of the day. Even in the ways of like, you feel like the crippling gambling debt, if that's going to do something, like it tore these families apart. I was like, it's not that deep. It's just like obviously there are some actual like realities to that are a bit harsher, a bit more of a reality check. But this movie isn't really. It feels more like a celebration of the sport, and the way that this movie also like sort of leaves you with that feeling of like, no, it doesn't matter how much money we spent or how much we betted on. It's just the love of the game at the end of the day. And it's so overly cheesy, but it somehow earns that. And I was just impressed by the film as well. It's like, so far, Johnny To, I don't know when you'll drop me with a movie that I'll say like, didn't work for me, but so far, yeah, no, all has worked for me so far.
Hey, I've seen like 20 plus films of him now, and like the lowest I've given is maybe like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So he hasn't really dropped like a stinker for me so far. But I just adored this movie. I remember the first time watching this movie, I was just laughing out loud multiple times, especially with the ex-girlfriend. The amount of jobs she can have is mind-boggling. It's like, I'll become a police officer to give you fines, and
like
I'll give you a
like
fine every 5 minutes.
Because I feel like, oh, she's a police officer. I was like, wait, why is she not a police officer anymore? And she's like chasing after him in like this really desperate way. Yeah, it's funny.
And like I wrote you, like, I want what they have.
Yeah.
And again, Andy Lau has popped up in many of his films as well. I feel like at this point you recognize the actors that show up in his movies multiple times again and again.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And yeah, I like you said with the Alzheimer thing. It's also quite funny how he goes to the doctor with his mom, and he's like, "What can I do to maintain some stability?" And he's like, "You should play mahjong." It's like, wait, no, I don't want that. Can anything else like checkers? Maybe if she was a kid. This is like the importance of that game, and the fact that at the end of the day, it didn't really like. Oh, it doesn't matter if you like win or lose. I feel like that is also just a wholesome message.
Dude, I love the dynamic between the mother and the ex-girlfriend as well. They have so many, like, when the second time she's around and she doesn't remember her and talks shit. It's like her reaction to it, or like the moment when she like flips the table, and he Andy Lau's character comes around, like the girlfriend, and it's like, and first she's like, oh, who did this? And they look at each other, and the girlfriend sort of wants to accuse her. I was like, the temper problem that she has. And I was like, okay, no, it was her. I was like, well, I might have just like, with my elbow or something, and it must have slipped. And then it's just like it cut to the table, and it's like 5 meters away. I was like, it's funny.
Yeah. It's such a fun movie. And then also the gang stuff, I do sort of agree with you. They oftentimes do go back to that lobby room, maybe 1 or 2 times, a bit too often. But it's also really to show, like the fact that they're happy that they got into public housing, and that Andy Lau's character at a certain moment says, like, I had a few years of winning. I can deal with some bad choices and some bad hands, which is also. Like the fact that this movie is light, but also tackling some dramatic stuff, but never being much of a downer, is what makes this movie so fun to watch and rewatch, as many people do, I guess. Do you want to play mahjong with me, like, and explain it to me?
The thing was, I was like, this year when we go to the next festival, which might be gone, I'm like so close to getting in my youngs and playing. I was like, we gotta do that. It's a pretty, I don't know how well it works if it's just a one-on-one.
With 2.
Yeah. But it still is like, it's in very simple ways. You have to make 4 sets of 3 and 1 set of just 1 pair, and it really doesn't matter any other way what you get. And there's like the one thing where the way that you can take from the pile, it always has to be something where you have to complete a set and then you have to show it openly. When you make a set of 4, also by taking someone else's, you have to say Kong, and that's only relevant if you want to make more money and have the set in there, because it's rarer, then you get a higher payout. Yeah, there's just a couple of rules, but it's not too difficult to actually get an understanding of it. It's just like also understanding the tiles, which can be different depending on set to set, but it's a pretty straightforward game that I think has a lot of depth to it, the way that you play it, which is like sort of the fun thing about it. But it can see that it's a very social game too. So yeah, it introduced me to the sort of Chinese New Year tradition of this movie being such a nice thing to revisit, but also a very fun game like mahjong that I can see why it has such a cultural importance in China and in Hong Kong.
I think if we're going to Cannes and we're gonna play, I just don't know what the neighbor's gonna hear. It's like gong, bong, like the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But right. What did you rate it?
I gave it an 8 out of 10. Strong 8.
I gave it an 8.7 out of 10 the first time, so I will give it the same rating this time, I guess. Again, such a fun movie. I don't even know where it lands into my Johnny To ranking. Let me quickly see. It is number 6.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Hey, maybe I should revisit that ranking, but it is number 6. Like my top 5 Johnny To. In case you're interested, like first one is Exile, second one is Election, the third one is a movie called Sparrow, the fourth one is Breaking News, and then the fifth one is Election 2. Yeah. Again, Johnny To is one of my favorite filmmakers, if not my favorite filmmaker. Man, did it miss.
Well, if you want to, we can select for just the next movie, not set a date on what we watch next, or we can put it off to a later date, whatever you prefer.
I low-key want to do another comedy movie, because going back to, although Sparrow is sort of a comedy as well. Oh wait, didn't we say we would do Romancing in Thin Air or
What's that?
You know what? Nah. I'll choose My Left Eye Sees Ghosts. That's
Okay.
That's the one I want to do. Yeah, that's
Alright.
also why.
That's one that's further down, huh? Like a lesser known one.
2002. My Left Eye Sees Ghosts. Also starring Sean Lau.
Right. Okay. Well, that will be our next one. We'll inform you, I guess. It might be the week after this one. It might be in 2 weeks' time that we do that already, or maybe later, depending on, like, we go back and forth with choosing a movie. This was like sort of both of our choices, and then next week, like this wraps up a like spotlight section here.
Yeah.
But
what are we doing next week?
For the Spotlight World Cinema, we are going by my choice, which is a movie. A Japanese movie from 1963 by Masaki Kobayashi, a filmmaker that is well known for his film that I believe at one point was number 1. It is still number 1 on Letterboxd, with Harakiri, which is an incredible movie. But he's also made the Human Condition, like the 3 parts of that, which I would love to watch at some point. Last year, with Nobody 2, I did a review of that, Samurai Rebellion, which is also by him.
Wait, how many movies does it have in the top 250? Wait, what?
Well, in the top 10 maybe. He also has a couple, which is crazy.
Wait, Harakiri, Kwaidan is in the 250. Is the Human Condition?
Yeah, he's
Samurai Rebellion.
He's got 6.
Oh wow.
He's got 6 in there.
Damn.
So in a filmmaker that I think is obviously appreciated on Letterboxd, the way that he's at number 1 there. But I think it's also still someone who is, I think, not really brought up a lot and discussed. So I would love to take a look at a film that I haven't seen yet. Kwaidan, 3-hour-long epic. It's streaming over on the Criterion channel. It's at spot number 247 on Letterboxd 2 with an average 4.2 rating. And it also is, like, in the little tagline, described as in the tradition of Rashomon and Gate of Hell, which has me really intrigued too. So yeah, that will be our world Spotlight World Cinema film that we'll discuss next week. And then the two of us will likely discuss In the Blink of an Eye, right? The new Andrew Stanton film that releases the same day that we end up recording, on that Friday, over on Hulu. It has a straight to Hulu release, which isn't the most promising for that film, but the director of Wall-E, might have something cooking. Live action film, though, that I'm interested in. And then we're also going to review Scream 7. That will be the return of Lachlan after he joined me last week for Wuthering Heights, because you haven't seen the Scream films, you're not caught up. So
I've seen Scream, the first one. I've seen maybe the fourth one partially. I've seen a lot of them partially, but never fully. So.
Not enough. And we are definitely caught up through the years of this podcast as well. Lachlan and I have reviewed the 5th and 6th Scream film, and we've also talked about the first one at some point too. We revisited that in the wake of the release of the 5th. So we are definitely prepared to watch Scream 7. And yeah, we'll have a full review for those things. Let us know what you'll be watching, what you watched, and what you want us to watch in the comments below. And that's a wrap for this week's podcast.
Yeah, it was fun. By the way, guys, fun fact, Ewan said I'll take the under on the 2-hour recording.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the thing is, because I had to restart part of mine, this is a bit of like background jumbo. I'm currently at 30 minutes, so I'm easy on my under. I just don't.
Do you want to know where? Do you want to know where I'm at?
I mean, it's not. I don't. Okay, sure.
2 hours 47.
Oh, fuck. I mean, you did yap in the beginning about like some personal stuff, so it might be 2.5 hours, hopefully.
Okay.
We cut it all down, but yeah, not a long episode. Anyways.
Oh, he's doing my stick of being. That's my stick. Don't steal it. Don't copy it.
And cut.
Cool.